You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Hey folks, welcome to Under Money Space with me. My name is Kalu Aja, and of course in this space we're talking money, the economy and finance. We had a bit of a technical issue. This is a new space, so thank you all for migrating. I couldn't hear you guys, and of course we can have a space if I can hear you guys. So this week, of course, we're going to review the new inflation methodology that was released by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. If you've been following the news, the NBS came out with a new stats this week that says our inflation, the Nigeria's core inflation, has fallen from 34% to about 24%. So essentially, we have prices still rising, but at a slower pace, or according to NBS, only rising by 24% and not the very, very high 34% that we had it over the week. So that's going to be our main topic this Sunday. We're going to start to review how NBS was able to reduce the inflation number, and then maybe see the impact of that number on the MPR, or called the monetary policy rate. Try to explain how that is connected, and also how that then affects other asset classes out there. So if you are doing fixed income, if you're doing equities, how does a fall in the interest rate affect you, right? That's what we want to talk about on Sunday. But always a good time on Sunday to also review what's happening in the Nigerian economy in the past week. Because I know one of you tune in from the US, the UK, and Canada. And this is one of the places where you guys get your information about what's happening in Nigeria. So I'll start to maybe give you guys a summary of the key financial issues going on in the country that would help in your decision making and all that. So I think the main one that I saw this week that also affects my topic this week is Mr. Rewani. If you guys know Mr. Rewani, he's a foremost economist in Nigeria. He said Nigeria was spending about 8 billion to defend the naira. 8 billion, that's what it would be. So essentially, how you defend the naira is that you are the central bank, you have foreign reserves, right? You can borrow foreign reserves and you can earn foreign reserve, which means the dollar, right? We can sell crude oil and earn dollars, or we can borrow dollars from euro bonds or from the international market. So Nigeria has issued about a $500 bond in Nigeria, local dollar bond, which means that we came to Nigeria and took dollars from Nigerians in Nigeria. We also have euro bonds issued also, which means we went to outside Nigeria and issued dollars. So we've got all this borrowing in dollars, right? Plus we earn crude oil. So when you earn dollars and you have a naira currency, the Nigerian naira currency is losing value. If you want to defend the naira, what you do is that you sell dollars, because anything you sell, you don't have to then buy something on the other side. You have to balance the equation. So we've sold dollars, we've borrowed dollars and then sold it. And then, of course, we bought naira. So when the central bank does that, the naira would appreciate. So when you say sold dollars to who? To the BDCs. So if you look at this, the central bank has continued its policy of supporting the BDC market. So every week, if you look at the BDC market every week, there are new folks. There's always a constant supply of dollars to the bureau de change. The idea is that if the bureau de change have got dollars and Nigerians believe that there's going to be dollars available, then there's no need to hoard dollars, right? There's no need to hoard dollars. I don't think the price of the dollar should be 1.4 or 1.5. That's a bit too high. So why is it 1.4, 1.5? Because lots of Nigerians do not believe they will get dollars if they request from the bank. So when people want to apply, maybe they will need $1,000 to do that transaction. They apply for $1,500 or $2,000. just because they want to make sure that they can get their request. So this excess request is what's causing this demand push. It's one of the reasons why this is causing the excess demand on the dollar. So you see it constantly going up because there's excess demand from people. There's an expectation that the naira will weaken or the dollar will strengthen, so people are requesting for that dollar. That's one big reason. The other reason is the fall in Nigeria's exports of crude oil. We've now, I think in the last month or so, we've increased our exports in crude oil. We've now surpassed the OPEC quota of 1.5. We're now meeting that quota, and I think we're doing more than that quota. That means dollars are going to come into the country, right? So that's also positive for the naira, very, very positive for the naira. Also, we have Dangote Refinery. Dangote Refinery was supposed to be the big game changer, because once you have a Dangote Refinery, that means you are not spending a lot of dollars to import PMS into the country. So it's supposed to be a big game changer. But Dangote is importing crude oil. So the NNPC does not have enough crude oil to give to not just Dangote, but the other local refiners. What that means is that we have just changed the name of the import. We are importing PMS. Now we are importing crude oil, but in effect, we are spending down our reserves. So as you can see, while we make money on the exports of crude oil and also on the borrowing of the dollar, we turn and we spend it on supporting and defending naira. So $8 billion has gone to that, and that's why naira has maintained this strengthening posture for the last 2 months. So Mr. Rewana is saying, listen, don't bank too much on the strength of the dollar, because, or i.e. the exchange rate terms, because the naira might weaken later on. That's what he's saying. So that's very, very significant piece of information right there. Again, like I told you guys, inflation rate has come down. Big major news that we're going to dive into this week. Just on the beside, I saw with the corner of my eye, I saw the guys from Flutterwave. They were in Aso Rock. They were going to meet the president. They want to also list. That's also material. Flutterwave is one of the, should we say, the unicorns in Nigeria. Unicorn means that their valuations over $1 billion, right? And where if fintech is able to present a Flutterwave to the Nigerian stock market and to list it, that deepens the market. That creates more wealth, I think, for Nigerians, because we can now buy and sell into that story, that growth story, which is fintech. Through Flutterwave. So that's positive for Nigeria, right? That we can get that done in record time and maybe get them listed and then the markets deepens. We're also waiting for Dangote, the Dangote refineries. We're also waiting for them to list. I've heard that they want to list this year. Let's see what happens. If they list, that would also blow up the market in a positive way, because then they can borrow, they can bring down their cost of capital, and perhaps then fund their operations. The bulk of their operations is in dollars because they're importing crude oil from the US. But if the NNPC is able to really focus and supply these guys with crude oil, then the Nigerian economy, in my view, just turns around really for good. The way to getting the Nigerian economy to work is to get the NNPC to supply all the local refineries crude oil and let them buy it in dollar, not naira, in dollar. They buy it in dollar. They are able to refine and supply local PMS to the Nigerian market, and they do a subsidy. There is nothing wrong with the subsidy. The subsidy is given a bad name because it's imported subsidy. When you import a product and you subsidize it, then you are killing yourself twice. But if NNPC can take local Nigerian crude oil, convert it to local PMS, and subsidize it locally, there's nothing wrong with that. We are giving everybody in Nigeria a tax break. So how will NNPC, because they are paying in dollars, be able to then recover their money? Well, the byproduct of the crude oil, the aviation fuel, the bitumen, the oils, the fertilizer, is from crude oil. They can export that, and they can get their dollars back to then pay the Nigerian Federation the dollars for the crude oil we're giving them. If we're able to have an economy that works like that, what would happen is that the money Dangote is paying to the United States and others to import crude oil, he can use that dollar to supply PMS at a cheaper price to Nigerians. PMS should really go down. It shouldn't be this $100. It should go back down. We should subsidize it. That then creates an incentive for the local SME guys in Nigeria to manufacture. Even if you're using a generator, but you're buying diesel at 500 naira, which is a subsidized diesel. But the subsidy is coming because you are giving Dangote crude oil, and Dangote is exporting that crude oil and is able to then come back and take his payment for the subsidy from the crude we're giving him. It's a win for Dangote. It's a win for Nigeria. It's a win for the ordinary Nigerian consumer. So I just hope that I want us to look at it in that light. There is nothing wrong with a subsidy. If you come to the United States, farmers get diesel at a subsidized rate, right? And they even color it differently because they know that food is national security. They give farmers subsidized diesel. Same in Europe, energy is subsidized. So if Nigeria has been blessed with crude oil and gas, then we have to use it to our advantage. We can't sell crude oil and gas to Nigerians at the same rate we sell to foreigners outside Nigeria. Then what's the point? What's the advantage? How do we attract investors to Nigeria? But if we did it this way, then you'd have folks come to Nigeria because there's an advantage. If you come to Nigeria, there's cheap power. But if you come to Nigeria and there's expensive power, why come to Nigeria? You might as well go to Ghana or Rwanda. So that's just my point on the NNPC, on the flutter wave, also on the inflation numbers that we're talking about. So let's get right into it. Right, again, guys, if you want to speak, request to speak, or send me a DM, I can read both of them, or just put a quote. I can read them all. Let me dive right into it and I'll get out the way, allow you guys to hop in and make your submissions. So the inflation in Nigeria, let me do welcome. Inflation in Nigeria is now 24%. What that means is that prices are going up, but they are going up at the rate of 24%, not 34%. So how did the NBS achieve this? When you measure inflation, essentially what you do is that you take a basket and you put lots of things in that basket. So in Nigeria's case, you put your rent, you put MTN recharge card, you put Indomie, you put everything. Price of beer, you put a lot of things. I think NBS seen that there are almost 100 and so items that you put in the basket. When you put them all in the basket, then you measure the rate of change of that basket. So the basket prices go up by 34% on average, and you say inflation, which is what we call the consumer price index, has gone up by 34%. That's basically how they measure inflation. The average movement in price of that basket. Some things go down, some things go up, right? So the average is that 24 or 34%. That's what NBS has done in the past. In the past, that basket was 51% food. So your tubers, your yam, your cassava, your plantain, your fish, your meat make up 51% of the consumer price index, the CPI that the NBS tracks. Now, NBS has said that they're only that basket food and beverage is going to make up only 40% of the consumer price index. What that means is that if the food prices go up in Nigeria, they can only contribute 40% to whatever price is in that basket. So automatically, if you do the maths, if before food was 51% and food was very, very volatile and food contributed to the increase in inflation, if you bring down that food from 51 to 40, then you've brought down inflation. It's very, very simple. And that's what they've done. They've reduced the food portion in the CPI from 51% to 40%. Thus, inflation has come down from 34% to 24%. What that tells you guys is the impact of food in Nigeria. That the price of beans, the price of rice in Nigeria is what is driving the cost of your interest rate in Nigeria. It's tied, it's so direct. You know, most of us, and I mean most of us, we live in Lagos, we live in Port Harcourt, Abuja, we live in the cities, right? And we do city things. We buy a car, we get a mortgage and all that kind of stuff. But we don't understand the correlation between what the farmers farm and how we pay for our rent interest. Because as long as food is expensive, then whatever you do in Lagos is going to be expensive. It's just that it's tied in. If you want to borrow money to buy a house and beans in Borno is expensive, you're going to pay more. The way you bring down inflation in Nigeria is to bring down the cost of food in Nigeria. It's so simple that it's mind-blowing why we haven't done it. We haven't done it, not that we haven't tried. The problem is the insurgency and the insecurity in the north. That's the problem. If there was no insecurity and insurgency, then there would be more food flowing to the cities, but there's none. Key example, Lake Rice. That was Kebbi and Lagos. It started off, beautiful concept. Kebbi has surplus in rice. Lagos has surplus in cash. Lagos will give Kebbi cash. Kebbi gives Lagos rice. Everybody's happy. GDP is up. Hunger is down. Both states make money. But now there's no rice flowing in the same numbers from Kebbi to Lagos. Lagos has got the largest rice mills in the world. Sorry, in sub-Saharan Africa in Lagos. But we have no rice paddy to make those factories run 24/7. And that's the problem. We import Gary. Someone's asking me, do we really import Gary? Yes, we import Gary. Just Google, does Nigeria import Gary? You see the picture. I've seen it myself in a store in Abuja. We import Gary from India. We import carbonated water. We import everything because local food is expensive. That's the problem. If you want to make Gary, the total cost to get the cassava, the palm oil, to cook, fry, bag it, it's more expensive than if you just import Gary from India. That's the problem. If you grow rice in Kebbi, when you bag it, fertilize it, take it to Lagos, it's cheaper to simply import the rice from India. You can run the numbers yourself. The problem is the cost of local production is just too high for manufacturing in Nigeria, which brings us to the MPR. The reason why the high dollar cost, the subsidy on dollar, we remove subsidy on the dollar, but the things that are still expensive is the high cost of production. It's all tied in. If you have expensive dollar, then it's cheaper to import because the cost of the petrol used in Nigeria has added the cost. We're not getting any savings from Dangote. So to make the same rice, Dangote is importing the same crude oil with the factory in Lagos to use as diesel to manufacture the same food. But in America, they don't use diesel to manufacture food. So they have a lower cost base than Nigeria, right? And that's the problem. So if you look at the title, that's the methodology part we've talked about. Now, if you are investing in Nigeria and interest rates have gone, and inflation has gone down, it should mean that interest rates should start to come down as well, which means that if you have fixed income prices will start to come down, which means the one you are holding today is going to be more valuable than the ones that are going to come tomorrow. So that's the hint right there. What about shares? If interest rates are going to come down, of course, that tells you that equities are going to perhaps have a bigger runway to rise because now their competition, fixed income, is coming down. So shares should have a larger runway to turn around it. But let me, I know before you joined, I talked about Flutterwave going to the Aso Rock to see the president. Flutterwave is in the equities asset class. I'm not sure if you have an inkling on what you expect from that. Do you think that's going to be a big game changer like we all think that is going to be, that Flutterwave coming to list in the market will open the door to more fintechs and deepen that market and create more wealth for Nigerians? What's the take? Let me hear you out on this and also on our general topic. There you go, sir.
Good evening, Carlo. Interesting disposition as usual. Great to be on space. And good evening, my compatriots. First of all, I think it's been a busy week, just like you highlighted, very busy points highlighted, and I feel that there's so many opportunities coming ahead of the year. And starting with Flutterwave, it's one of the most popular unicorns in Nigeria. I think based on the latest valuation, it has the highest valuation by a fintech startup. Last bookmakers put it at $3 billion. However, I really didn't see any much of a big deal going to see Mr. President. Maybe it was just more of a symbolic trying to create more awareness because the NGX is privately run, and you also need to understand that there is little input the president can put in the listing of that business on the market. One of the problems I have with Flutterwave is that they've sent conflicted signals a couple of times, and that has made investors, particularly in the local space, a bit concerned. The last interview they made, they said that they will come to the market when they are profitable. And oftentimes, it has always looked like they were going to list in the United States stock market. However, I've always wanted them to have a dual listing proposition, going from the fact that if you look at what's happening in Jumia, there was a point Jumia had over $1 billion valuation. And you also need to understand that local perception also can support the stock price, even if the stock is in trouble water. So as we speak, Jumia has a valuation of less than $200 million. So I felt that they should tap it. So it's a good thing, Carlo, but the truth of the matter is that going from their body language, $3 billion valuation, the company at best is aspiring profitable, then it's going to be a lot of problems. It's going to be a lot of problems because, first of all, Nigerian stock investors are not like the Americans you see on NASDAQ. That growth stock, earning per share, price book, throw it away. Those things are beautiful for investment bankers. And there are three things I know Nigerians like, particularly my covering the stock market. They want profitable business. They like to hear, they like to see, like have your cash flow like MTN. Yeah, cash flow is king, but Nigerian investors want to see you are making money. There are a lot of fintech companies listed in the Nigerian stock market that have depressed valuation and they are profitable. So you have to do them more than just being beautiful or saying you have 1 million. They don't care if like I have 100 million customers. What they really want to see is share buybacks. They want to see reward on consumers. They want to see growth. They want to see real growth. And trust me, they will check into your books. So if Futawave can offer that, well, maybe that 3 billion, but I really feel that they really need to make their valuation more attractive because if you are saying that that valuation as the listing is at least 2 times bigger than GT, bigger than Zeblat, you must be offering what those guys. So I think they have a lot. Their investment bankers would have to do a lot to position, and I don't know how they would attract retail participation, but it's definitely a positive thing. Then another interesting thing you said, Kalu, that I also felt that we should talk about, like we spoke about the interest rates and the Naira, you spoke about certain, and I think in the FX space, I listened to Bismarck one, somebody I respect so much, and he's one of the few minds that have been consistent with his analysis in that space, and I feel like even if you don't agree with him, he deserves his onions. However, I think the gain in the Naira, like he said, short term, but the short term seems not to be like the way the papers are putting it, because if you listen to bookmakers and a lot of investment bankers early this year about the Naira, there were 3 conditions they gave for that, and you saw that the Naira stability started coming to play in November. The ongoing reforms by the CBN and the fact that the CBN keeps giving the fiscal side enough time to make adjustments around the economy has helped the Naira somehow. And I don't really think the CBN is defending 8 billion. Yeah, the cost of bringing FPIs have been expensive, but with the fact that rates are going down, if you look at the treasury market, for example, yields are now below 20%. So the subscription, total amount of subscription we saw in subsequent quarters is not what we are seeing in the most recent. It tells you the fact that it seems that our saving grace will be the stock market. And unfortunately, this week, I saw mild sell-offs in Nigerian banks, partly because the status quo still remains. Tightening in banks is still high. There are 50%. Many things were not adjusted. So despite the fact that, inflation rate looks lower, the rebasing looks lower, the reality is that the CBN was wise in their own right not to make hasty decisions, particularly the fact that they need to compare, since the new rebasing just took place a few days before the meeting, and they really need to take time to really see if inflation is really coming down as they want.
Yeah, so let me, what I hear you say, so if you look at the market now, usually the NBS will say inflation is down, then the CBN will then, based on that report, lower its monetary policy rate, which would then say, listen, banks, if you want to borrow from us, you're going to borrow at a lower rate. Then the banks will then translate that to the investment and say, listen, if you deposit money with us, we're going to pay you lower. Then the stock market will then take dressing and say, wow, fixed income is paying lower, which means that if I'm a stock, I can do better because people will run to me because they want to get more risk with their returns. Same thing with bonds. So if you have a current bond paying 5%, if rates go down, tomorrow your new bonds will be paying 3%. So the bonds you have today become more valuable. So their prices go up. But this is now, with this new change in the NBS data, it's not being driven by an actual change of prices in the market. The NBS themselves said prices have not come down. All they've done is to say maybe when you have malaria, the doctor comes and measures your temperature, but you have malaria. Now the doctor is saying, I won't measure your temperature, but you are still sick. So really, in your own take now, is there really going to be a market reaction? Because you and I know inflation is still 24%. That's still wild because we've removed a whole 10 basis points and we're still at double digits starting with 2. It's profound. We've taken away 10 and we are still at double digits with 2. So,
but on paper, materially, it means that Nigerian stocks can really bring out real returns. If you look at just this year alone, I can give you at least 40 stocks that are outrunning the Nigerian inflation rate based on rebase value. But you've really highlighted the fact that the feelings are different from what we are seeing on paper. But from an investment perspective, like I said, the market has already started reacting. Like Nigerian banks, despite the fact that by any seasons, GT, Access, UBA, First Bank, they've not. First Bank declared. These other banks have not declared their 2024 results, and usually dividend. So some of these. I was surprised when I saw some profit taking. So investors are kind of cautious, like you highlighted, and we spoke about the fact that treasury bills. The yield dropped. Subscription is not, even though it was fully oversubscribed as usual. Nigerian treasury bills is usually oversubscribed, but if you want to know the amount, it's really moderated. And you also said that it also gave an advantage for long-term bonds. So when rates drop, long-term bonds are that. But Carl, like you said, it's still the early phase. But what I can say is that I don't think it's too good for the Naira personally, my own opinion. And, I've listened to many experts. And for me, my perspective is that, from the government side, the advantage is that the cost of defending Naira will be less because the premium they are paying, based on the fact that rates will drop or rates will be stagnated for a while, means that they spend less. But from an investor perspective, we all know why the Naira for now has been doing pretty well. It's not the fact that crude oil has been amazing. Let's leave those paperwork that they're saying they're getting 4 million barrels before 2030. We know that is almost like saying Nigeria will hit a $2 trillion economy. Because the reality is that these things don't work just by saying. You must see things on ground. And all investments is really tied to so many things. And also, Nigeria is not working in vacuum. We work in relationship with different countries. So what has been saving us, Carlo, right now is FPIs. FPIs are kind of volatile, and we also need to find ways. And my problem with this government is that while the CBN has done amazingly well in terms of frontier markets objectives, the fiscal side has not been this supportive because we still don't have an economy that can really sustain what the Apex Bank has done so far. Because, like I highlighted, if you even look at the fact that we've dropped, inflation basket has dropped to about 40-something%. Food production is very low. Ever since I've been covering the financial markets, Carlo, I've never seen an agricultural ministry this inactive. Even I remember under Babangida that a lot of people criticize. I still remember under Apache. I see the agricultural ministry was doing so much. If there are a lot of programs, it might not be as efficient as one expected, but the amount of professionals and programs we saw in that space was legendary. So, Carlo, my fear is that the core part of the economy is not fired up. However, the private sector has really been on the run. And if you look at results from last year, it seems the worst is over, And that's why we also look at it from that perspective, especially on Bloomberg reports, saying that the reforms of the president and his administration seems to be paying off, which I totally agree. But the problem is that reforms, like you said, are just the structure that really puts a pathway on how things are built. But the institutions that really make these things sustainable, we're not seeing it because, like you said, food is still expensive. I did an analysis. I looked at almost all stocks around the world on the terminal. I tried to compare with, and can see pure water. I'm talking of units now. If you look at when GT was listed, GT stock was more expensive than pure water. If you remember, if you look at some stocks in these, there was a time, First Bank, there was a time First Bank was almost as expensive as a cheap wine in Nigeria, But now, when you look at these stocks, compared with food, the way food has gone up, pure water is more expensive than 60% of the stock listed. So it tells you that food inflation has grown faster than even the unit price of an average banking stock. Also, you look at Nigeria, you look at blue chip stocks, for example. You look at spaghetti. In the European Union, average spaghetti you get for €1 or less. The ones that have brown flour, you get for 2-3 euros. If I want to buy an HSBC or Shell stock, I spend at least 100 times that value.
Yeah.
But in Nigeria, I want to buy spaghetti, apart from Airtel and probably Zeblat, I will buy any blue chip stock. So it really tells you that the core problem of the Nigerian economy is weak disposable income, weak institutions, lack of cohesion between the fiscal and the monetary side. However, like I said, you can't bet against Nigeria. Like our stock market, despite the fact that it was downgraded by 2 top rating firms, is already firing up at over 5% year to date. Companies are bringing out profit.
So, Olumide, just a question for you. So, in your own personal expertise, right, this fall in MPR, is it going to affect prices of, say, stocks? Do you see it changing the price of, say, stocks in Nigeria? Will it have any effect, or is it just cosmetic? Just in your own personal view.
Yeah. So, Carl, like I said, maybe the MPC meeting was because you look at banking stocks, it dropped slightly. All the tier 1 banks, though the drops were mildly, but it practically tells you that investors were not really buying into what they got from the MPC meeting, But it's still in early days, like I said, and investors react based on fundamentals coming up in the market. Let's see how result comes in play. But my long-term view is that from the monetary side, from an investor side, I like what the CBN is doing. I like the fact that they didn't rush into decisions. I like the fact that their minutes reading based their rationality behind holding on rates and the reasons about falling the drop in core basic items, party and diesel, all those things help. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But the truth of the matter is that, Carlo, I didn't know that MPC inflation readings can have the effect of food inflation. Like I've always argued, if Cardoso really wants to bring
Please hold on, Emmanuel. Let me go ahead.
If Cardoso really wants to bring inflation to single digits, he has to do what Emefiele did, and Emefiele feel that he has to go to agricultural intervention, because agriculture, whether you reduce the basic, whether you reduce it to, I think this guy is sorry, Emmanuel, mute your mic. Whether you reduce it to the weight of the CPI on food, whether it is reduced lesser than 40%. The truth of the matter is that food is the major problem facing the Nigerian economy. It's affecting the capital market, Carlos. So I personally think that we need more intervention in agriculture. I think we need to talk more on agriculture. Carlos, we really don't have programs in the agriculture ministry. I don't know of anyone that can say this administration is trying to do that has really brought out and is really helping people right now. Fertilizer still expensive. Dangote is more concentrated on making dollars and focusing on farmers. The president order on zero imports on food items has not been implemented. Though I understand why it has not been trying to protect the farmers, so it has a political cost. I understand that. But, we really need food programs that really elevate the problems of the average Nigerian.
Okay, I hear you. I'll quickly get in Emmanuel, but I wanted to ask you, Emmanuel, what's on your mind? You were itchy to speak. What do you want to talk about? I have a few questions for Olumide and all that. Okay, Olumide, so I just want to be clear on what you just highlighted. So this fall in inflation, if we look at rates in the banks, if we look at rates in the stock market, you said the stock market adjusted slightly. Do you think that if we administratively bring down the price of or the cost of inflation in Nigeria, it would have a positive effect? Because Bloomberg is saying the reforms are working. Would it offshore attract investment? Because they just look at the numbers. If you go on Nigeria's website now, inflation is 24%. How they got 24%, not a lot of people will dig in. Will this net be positive for the Nigerian economy, that we are going to say inflation is coming down and we can sell that story to investors?
Yeah, because I think, like I said, I think the MPR, the CBN and the private sector, they're doing really an amazing job. Look at Fidelity, for example. Look at assets. Look at the amount of funds they were able to generate within a limited amount of time, despite the fact that liquidity, disposable income in Nigeria was down. So it tells you that, investors see hope in our market.
Okay.
The major issue we have, Carl, to be honest, the major issue we have is we don't have continuation of and policy stability in the sense that, for example, you look at the Naira now. Last year, there was a point where the Naira was going lower than 1,000 Naira, and things changed. And why was things changing? We're already shouting about FAC allocation, we're already shouting about fiscal indiscipline, we're already shouting about wastage in government spending and things like that. Like what you see in America and what you coming back home, the major problem we're having, Carl, is from the fiscal side. Okay. We don't have the connect between the West, the North, the South. Nigerians are divided in terms of political affiliation. People don't understand that we make up the country, not the tribes make us. So we have a lot of problems on that side.
Yeah.
However, like I said, investors are trickling in. If you look at the stock market right now, FPI participation in the stock market increased. Last quarter it increased. NGX data showed it increased. So gradually FPIs are coming in, and it's positive that yields are going down in the treasury bill market, because why would an average Nigerian invest? Look at money market. It was so popular last year because you just put your money blindly 22%, you get 20 to 22%. Cardinal Stone was giving us 24%. So a lot of people felt like this is risk-free money, so they were not really investing. So the fact that yields are even dropping in treasury, we might see an uptick gradually in the stock market. However, the stock market, most of the stocks there are trading above 52-week high.
Gotcha. So the key point is that, of course, the rates dropping will not be so kind to the current investors, but it forces everyone to go look for risk. So risk means that the banks can start to look at SMEs to where they can make money. Because right now, as you and I know, all you have to do as a bank is wait, collect deposits at 5% and buy treasury bills at 20%. You make 15% risk-free as a bank, which shouldn't be so. The bank should be taking that money and looking for risk. I mean, the CBN has said, okay, 50% CRR, all that kind of stuff. But really, there is no the entrepreneurs at the lower end of the market do not get credit. If they don't get credit, how can they invest? How can they pay salaries? If they get credit at 25%, how can they operate? So in essence, where I'm trying to go to is that even though I see the methodology might be flawed, I think the CBN should try to jump on this. Last space day, before we even got the MPR, so the CPI report from the MBS, we said the CBN has got to change its fight against inflation. It's fighting a monetary fight on a supply issue. The problem with inflation in Nigeria is food supply from the north and the middle belt is not coming to the south. That's the problem. When you measure inflation, tubers, yam tubers, cassava tubers, that's what's driving inflation. Meat, fish. It's not caused by too much money in circulation. If today there is zero money in circulation, the price of food will still not come down because there's just not enough food in the market. Lagos State today is doing their strategic reserve where they can buy food in bulk and store in Lagos and distribute. That's what the CBN should really be investing in to get food security. So they can't grow food, but that project is a strategic project. What if all states did that? If all states in the federation did what Lagos is doing, say we're going to create this warehouse system where we're going to buy food during harvest and we're going to store that food during harvest, so that when food supply goes away from that warehouse, we can supply our cities, and that would keep on bringing inflation down. The state will buy in bulk, buy tomatoes, buy cassava in bulk, cold freeze it in a place, and the market folks can go there and then sell from that. So what I'm saying is, I like what they are doing if we can jump on it and improve the pricing. If we simply leave it at where it is today and take it down to 10%, but you can't get rice in the market, then we're in trouble. Emmanuel, so you want to speak, sir?
I wanted to ask you that the listing of FUTA wave on the Nigerian exchange, how long does it take for the whole agreement to be completed?
Oh, I don't think they've done. Okay, thanks for the question, sir. Well, I don't think they've done it yet. I saw them at Aso Rock, and they were going to Aso Rock to tell the president that they want to list. I don't know why they were doing that. The market is private sector; it's open. If you want to list, go and list. I'm not sure.
Honestly, I think it's also it's not now. A lot of people are even doubting, because you look at the feedback. I think we should be aware that when you see things over and over, this is like the fifth time they're saying that they're going to list. If you look at the papers, for example, different occasions, and it doesn't come to fruition, it affects their integrity. But having said that, one you understand that maybe this time they really mean business, because they mentioned the stock market, Nigerian stock market. But like you said, the president has need to. When Arada Energy was listed on the stock market, he didn't go to see the president. When GT, though the president can added color to it, let's be honest, because when they went to meet the president and they announced this thing, it was all over the dailies. That might not have been. So seeing the president definitely added color. But from an investor's perspective, people really want to see, is the company really making money? They want to see the books. So first, investment bankers really have to do a lot of workings, and from gossips and hearing from investment bankers, nobody has seen their book really paper. So in reality, I think we are not going to see anything. The earliest we could see maybe second quarter or third quarter. So I just hope that this time it comes to fruition, not just on paper.
Okay, perfect response there. And the second question I wanted to ask you, if you look at our title, so stocks are. There's going to be help in this. What about like Eurobonds that are in dollars? Those Eurobonds, does this have any effect on them? Will those Eurobond prices come down or up? I looked at it right now. Some are at a premium. Do you think if MPR Nigeria is going down and I have dollars and I want to invest, should I convert to Naira and invest, or should I just leave it in dollars? And I'm putting you on the spot. What's your take on that?
I'm putting you on this spot that I don't like. But to be honest with you, having exposure in that asset class makes a lot of sense, but I'm always against trading at the black market. Though the price at which the Naira is trading right now seems to be a bit more attractive. My bet is that there are a lot of things the government is doing in the FX market that a lot of people are ignoring. At some point of the year, the government is going to restrict the use of the dollar in illegal markets. So what I mean is like trading dollar outside banking industry will be tagged illegal. There's this data. So I feel like that might give the Naira some saving grace, and Dangote's refinery and stuff. So buying and getting 9% premium might be a good edge. Getting about 9% premium might be a good edge. Or investing in dollar fund where you get between 7 to 8% for those that like risk-free investments, 7 to 8% dollar is not really bad, if you're looking at what the treasury market is giving. But personally, I think I'm really looking at Nigerian companies personally. I see what Okiti Kupa Palm and NAST is doing. I'm waiting for them to be listed on the NGX. Look at Presco. Presco has done about 50% this year. Look at Okumu. Okumu oil is really financing that. So I'm looking at businesses that will really ride with the Nigerian economy, and Personally, edging with the edging with the Euro bond might be a good position, but I'm putting most of my position in the Nigerian equity market, particularly the fact that Nigerian banks. So I'm waiting for Nigerian banks to correct, because I know after any results, there will be a lot of sell-offs, like what we saw in the Wando when Wando declared was it 1 for 12 or 1 for 14, and after Valentine we saw the stock dropping to 6 now. So definitely I know GT assets UB will really give, but after the dividend payout, of course these stocks will have to drop. So maybe I might look at the right time to buy this time, because personally right now I have a chunk on these stocks, but I want to see what these guys will really pay for dividend.
So just to put in spot, you are holding naira to invest in naira, or you are holding dollar to invest in dollar, or you are doing dollar to invest in naira?
Good question. Last year I was using dollar to invest in naira. Last year I was using dollar. I was using large chunk. In fact, I changed about 30% of my dollar allocation. I put it in dollar in Nigeria. But this year, since I've gotten what I want to get, I'm balancing out. When I mean balancing out, I am not changing. I'm also trying to reduce my naira exposure, not because of lack of confidence, but the fact that I've already achieved my naira objective. Last year I felt that there was no how the naira would get to 2,500. I felt that was an exaggeration. I felt that at some point stability and my investment objective was achieved. So going forward, I'm just going to look for safer yields, and I think the fixed income, the banking stocks will give me that. Then I'll also wait for Dangote. Dangote doesn't look like it's going to list so soon. I was particularly more exposed in the money market because of Dangote refinery. So I'll definitely wait. If total wave comes bringing an attractive offer, something I might look at, but I definitely will look for good fundamentals, Carlo. And I'm not a businessman. I wish I could go into the real estate market. The REIT, I tried it couple of times, but it's not so liquid in Nigeria. ETFs are not something that I will encourage people that have deep pockets. It's good for retail investors. It just shows you performance. So basically, I will stick with liquidity and Nigerian banks.
Okay, let me ask you a question again on this. I read the report again out there. Gold is rising in value. Many folks are scared about what America is going to do in terms of tariffs, the dollar. So folks are trying to buy gold to sort of hedge against that. There's gold, there's Bitcoin. Bitcoin to me looks like, I don't know what Bitcoin does. When things are bad, Bitcoin falls. When things are bad, gold rises. So I'm not yet sure if we can even list Bitcoin as a safe asset or someone who can go and pack money in. But what's your take on gold? And I mean, if you're trying to buy gold, I know I just buy Barron's gold. I just buy the ETF that sells gold.
Okay.
What's your take on that? Is this something Nigerians should do? I mean, there's dollar that we usually buy and keep in our pocket. Should we also look at commodities like gold, like orange juice? What do you think of that?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, Carlo. Like I held you're a fan of ETFs. I traded gold on the spot, so I held at around 2,200, and it's been for a while. Though I bought little, and the reason why I bought it then was just that I really wanted to understand how the geopolitical correlation, because I felt like the dollar interest rates were fairly high in dollar terms, and gold should be at depressed value. But what I found out was that central banks, particularly China, was on a gold buying spree, so that increased the attraction for gold. And gold also has this ornamental value among women and a lot of jewelers. So I think that also played a part. So I'm not surprised gold is at that level. However, a lot of bookmakers still argue that gold has more room for upside, because Donald Trump has highlighted the fact that he wants rates to be lower. You can't ignore his influence in the global economy, despite the fact that the US Fed is trying to prove its independence. So at some point, if interest rates get lower, it also gives good more room power. I think the issue we have with Bitcoin is the ecosystem and the fact that traditional finance has not bought into it. You look at Warren Buffett, for example, like you said, people like you are people that really control traditional finance. Warren Buffett has about $334 billion in cash and equivalents, and he's really not talking about Bitcoin. So, I think Bitcoin is still in its early stage, but it has really done remarkably well. It has attracted inflows. Strategy, formerly known as MicroStrategy, that has $47 billion worth of Bitcoin. His Bitcoin stash is almost going close to 500,000. So it tells you that corporate finance is attracted to that asset class. So it makes sense for someone to get little exposure. Though, Carlo, like you said, it's a very volatile asset, so you have to factor those into consideration. So I think gold really makes sense. And for me, orange juice, Florida weather, what happens in Brazil really influence orange juice. You look at lumber, the housing market, because the wood plays a major role. But many Nigerian investors don't really have that liquidity to put in those bets. So, like you said, ETFs in commodities makes a lot of sense. But, Carlo, I think another problem we have is that since we don't have that opportunity to invest in those kind of exchanges, Afex, for example, Nigeria, some people can look at Gary Rice. You could look at cassava, you could look at... So Apex is a good place to really look at local commodities. And, like we've said, though this year, commodities seems to be moderating. If you look at it on the 5-year spectrum, commodities have outdone equities in Nigeria. That just tells you how amazing agro industries. And unsurprisingly, you look at Presco book, you look at Okumu and Okitipupa palm, you understand what I'm saying. So having exposure in the agricultural business is interesting, but it also requires understanding about seasonality, liquidity, and also the risk in that sector.
Gotcha. If you have a question for Olumide or I? My God, Ivy, I wanted my economist to also hop in. I wanted to ask him a question on this, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group and all that, but I wish he would hop in. If you did have a question, you can speak now. If you, Olumide, I'm looking at the Nigerian, looking at the FX market like you talked about. Cocoa last year was a killer. Cocoa and coffee, killer. They made a lot of money. Did Nigerians participate in this trade? Cocoa here is on FX. It's not really making a profit. It's about down 0.39. Did we participate in this cocoa gold mine that happened last year? Did Nigeria participate? What was your take?
You mean was Nigeria part of the rally?
Did Nigeria? Did we enjoy this? I mean, the cocoa. If you look at the trade report,
but cocoa, I think we are the fourth largest producer in the world, right? Behind Ivory Coast, Ghana.
But that fourth, Olumide, is like the number one is like 50. Then we're like 2.
True, very true. Yeah, but the reality is like it's just unfortunate, Carlo. Cocoa is what we used to build many of the institutions we found in the West. But look at the Granite Pyramid. Interestingly, MPR State, for example, they're doing a lot in cocoa, and I'm very interested in seeing how they take that up, But in terms of agro exports, we are doing very poor as a country. Even looking at from our presidents, from our founding fathers, if they wake up and see how far we've gone to agriculture, I'm sure it will be very, very, it will be marked down, So I think we are not making so much compared to what the Brazilians. Brazil's agro economy is bigger than Nigeria's oil industry. That just tells you how invested they are, despite the fact that Brazil is an oil-rich country. I think one of the problems we have, Carlo, like I've mentioned, is that the people in our agricultural ministry are not attractive people like what we see in the banking industry. So, for example, look at the banking industry, for example. You know, one of the reasons why young people go into banking industry is not the fact that, it's just the service sector. The kind of people you see in the banking industry, you know, makes a lot of people attracted to that sector. You look at the agro industry in America, you know, like the big names, you know, Cargill, for example, you look at what they pay in the agricultural sector, you look at farmers, you know, and the support they get. So, yeah, we're not seeing that. We are not seeing that. A lot of people are not talking about agriculture. And agriculture, for me, is the key component of taking a lot of Nigerians out of poverty. Agriculture is the highest employer of labor, you know, and data have shown that agricultural businesses can be more profitable than even the banking industry, for example. Look at Presco, for example. Presco had a profit before tax of 124 or 25 billion naira, you know. From tier 2 banks, they make that, you know, in a year, in 2024.
So that number again.
I think 125 or 124 billion naira before tax, the Presco, what they made in 2024, you know. That's amazing on Nigerian standard, but a lot of people don't see these things. So I think we really need to, and that's why one of the things I'm trying to do now is push the agricultural companies forward. A lot of people need to see that there's also money in the agricultural sector. Though governments also need to play a key role. Agricultural extension officers are their low. I try to speak to some farmers and ask whether they get this support from agricultural extension officers, experts, government. They don't get these things. Sometimes these guys have to go all the way to lobby to get. So we really need government support. And, you know, to be honest with you, I really can't blame the federal government because by Nigeria's constitution, states play a larger role in agricultural than federal government. So I looked at the budget state by state. Yes, Lagos usually has the highest budget on agriculture, but I was really impressed by Niger State. Niger State increased their agricultural expenses by.
But then the returns, from Niger State had this big splashy thing on agriculture. Are we seeing any results from that?
Very true. You know, Kalu, it's still the early days, but I'm looking at where the money is going. But based on looking at returns, I think for me, the state that is showing returns now is Edo State. You know, I look at Presco Ukumu, they are in Edo State, and I look at what the oil palm business in Edo State is looking at. And I was impressed by what Obaseki did in Edo State. You know, some of these crops take years to grow. You know, they are not food crops. We call them cash crops in agriculture. So they have a growth within 3 to 5 for them to start bearing. So I think for me, states that have really shown uptick, Abia in terms of cocoa. Look at Edo in terms of oil palm. Lagos, we are seeing the infrastructural side coming on play in terms of warehouse, but you know, I expect much better from Lagos, particularly in fish farming and rice farming. I'm expecting to see that, you know, but the argument is that Lagos is diversifying to other states, you know, buying farmland and investing.
Let me give you this number. So I looked at the cocoa exports in Nigeria. This is just a quarter. This is quarter 3, 2024 is the latest we have. If you add superior quality cocoa beans and standard quality, if you add both of them together, you get about 537, is that million? I would say billion export from Nigeria for the quarter. That's nothing. That's Zenith Bank makes that maybe on a week on a street in Lagos. That's really nothing. And that's our number one export. That's our number one agricultural export. So you have cocoa, you have the butter, you have the standard and quality, and total is about less than 500 billion, right? So, and that's the largest. If you go down, cashew is about 44 billion. Is it million? Is it million? 44 billion? That's nothing. And cashew was it before cocoa's price went up, cashew was leading. If you go down, go to palm oil, it's nothing. 4 billion. 1, 2, 3, 4, nothing. You go down to Lagos is doing. There's this massive pond in Lagos where they export prawns to Walmart. King prawns. It's in Lagos. There, massive place there. But if you look at the export of crabs, it's just 667 million. It's nothing. You know, ginger. Kaduna has ginger, the best quality ginger in the whole world. 653 million. Really nothing. Gum Arabic 2 point something billion. The point is that, all this money we're quoting, all this stuff we're quoting, this is real export revenue that Nigeria could bring in to diversify us away from crude oil revenues, which are our number one source. About 85% of the money comes from crude oil. And we have all this stuff. Nothing is really going on there, So I'm not sure what they can do. You talk about agricultural extension, folks, but cocoa last year in the entire world is nearly 10,000 per ton, right? Cocoa return. And what Nigeria is doing just...
Yeah, but like you said, Nigeria is a monotonous economy. No argument about that. We really rely on oil and its derivatives. There's no argument about that. But the reality is that we need to start somewhere. We need to. So you make a lot of sense. I don't, for example, all these agricultural products, they have little impact on the naira. I don't see them helping FX market
because they are so low. They should help, but because they are so low, that's why there's no impact.
But the impact is that they play a huge role in our labor force. Agriculture is the largest employer of labor. So I believe that if we can expand that sector, if people understand that a agro company can make 100 billion naira in Nigeria, in today's Nigeria, this is an Edo State based company, not Lagos State based company. It really tells you that there is money to be made in this country. I think that's where we need to start selling, and that's why I'm so happy about the stock market, because it's really so many companies that people really don't see opportunities in Nigeria. For me, I think if we can break into the agriculture, if the president can just reduce his number of ministries to maybe 15 or 30, focus more on agriculture, electricity, education, health, by the time he is running for election again, even his critics will. But you see, I looked at the book launch. Even though it's not a financial matter, I looked at it, and I looked at the journey so far. It's not something. It's not something to be happy about.
Okay, we have a commodity trader here that wants to speak. But let me just give you this last data point before I bring on confidence. Data point: our trade with West Africa. The bulk of our trade with West Africa is on petroleum, so crude oil and all that. Then we also export electrical power to Niger and to maybe the guys in the West Coast. So the bulk of our exports is crude oil and petrol to West Africa. We also export power supply. Don't laugh. We export power supply to West Africa. Then we also export cocoa. But guess what we import from West Africa? We import the same petroleum bitumen, then we import aviation fuel, then we import cocoa powder. So we use the cocoa powder to add as a sweetener for our own cocoa. We import it into Nigeria. I'm sure it's from Cote d'Ivoire or Ghana. It's our third largest import from West Africa. Number one is petroleum bitumen, which we have. Number two is aviation spirit, which we have. Dangote is exporting aviation fuel to the US, but we're importing it. Number three is cocoa powder. We have cocoa, but we're importing the powder. Number four is mackerel, the fish for Mama BC's Mr. Maput. We're importing that fish. It's our fourth largest import from West Africa. And it's big money. It's 5 billion. 5 billion.
Nigerians like that fish. Actually, Nigerians like that fish a lot.
But we have the fish here. Then number 5 is palm oil.
It can't meet local demand.
The point I'm making today is this, right? Everything that we import from is not from America. It's from West Africa. Everything we import from West Africa. If you add the totals of bitumen, we import 20 billion worth of bitumen. Aviation fuel, 14 billion. Cocoa, 8 billion. Mackerel, 5 billion. Palm oil, we import palm oil, 4 billion. If we can't even control West African trade, I don't see anybody importing potatoes to America or orange to America. I mean, they have enough, but if we can't even break this West African trade, that we're importing palm oil, cocoa, bitumen, and aviation spirit. Now, wow, Nigeria,
like I said, our agricultural ministry and the federal government's policy towards agriculture under this administration, it's one of the at lowest level.
Let's get the expert there. Let's get confident. I think confidence says a trader. Confidence says you are a trader or commodity. Is that what you do? Am I getting that right or wrong? Confidence.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Carlo. So I think I'll just start by doing a brief introduction. I've had over 10 years, over a decade experience in agriculture. I started with technology in agriculture, providing spray precision technology drones to spray most of the largest farms in Nigeria. Not to call most of the name, but any name of anyone you've known, from the richest man in Africa to every other person, both the Indians and the rest, we've sprayed their farms. And over those years, there's something that was very critical for me. Like, there's a farm of one of the most popular rice we have in Nigeria. They have about 10,000 hectares in Nasarawa, and they're farming on 50% of that land, and it was just providing a little above 10% feedstock to their meal. So they were still having issues of even getting, raw paddy to the meal. And we had smallholder farmers that can actually provide those paddy and increase their milling capacity to at least 80%. But the problem we are having in Nigeria is the supply chain gap between deep processors and the farmers. The farmers are too rural. I made that switch in 2023. I said, you know what? We're actually producing so much that we are not seeing. Because as I'm working for the big guys, we also have a program for the smaller guys, the guys that have 1 hectare, 2 hectares. And I will tell you, I got to a village in Bida, and the amount of rice these guys were farming was in excess of 30,000 hectares as a combined village. And I was the first, community or unknown individual that have been to that community. And I mean, it got me thinking, why are we wasting so much and importing when we have a whole lot of people that are doing this on our own soil, but they are nowhere to be found? That was how I started cultured commodity, linking meals to the rural farmers. We are more like the trust in between those two people, because the bigger guys cannot just go and enter into the rural community and start offloading products, be it rice, maize, and the rest, so that they can process. They want to give LPO, they want everything by the books, and the farmers don't want to do that.
Gotcha. So question, I don't know if I want to ask us, when you continue about, in your own mind or in your own statistics, do you think the food output in Nigeria is up or down? But you can continue, sir. I don't want to forget that question for you.
So the food output in Nigeria, based on the experience I've had in the last 24 months, is up. Do you know we actually have people from Cameroon that come into Nigeria during the rainy season? Today is what we are in February. From June, July, August, you'll see so many foreigners coming in. Trucks will be leaving Sokoto. Trucks will be leaving Adamawa. Trucks will be leaving even the Wharton Borno. Trucks will be leaving Calabar. In fact,
so they're coming here to buy or to farm?
Yes, they are coming here to buy and pulling out. Now, we now have, and you know what these funny things that these guys do? They buy our product from our farmers that have produced this commodity that we dearly need. They take it to a warehouse just within the border, and guess what? By the time we reach November, December, January, we come back to them and start buying it again at a ridiculously high price. That is why we have the dry season scarcity and high prices. And some Nigerians started doing it themselves. They just go to rural communities, get all those farmers, buy 1 million tons. They go to the warehouse and pack, which the Niger State governor last year was clamping down all of them. But now the problem is not, economics is simple. Once there's a demand, there should be a supply. Okay. And people will always use the economic scale at their advantage by buying a whole lot because they have liquidity on their hands and wait till there's no more supply. And once there's no more supply, prices skyrocket. Last year, we saw price of rice go from, we supplied rice to most of the popular mills at 460,000 per ton. But guess what? Every week, it was adding 5%, then it jumped to 20%, then it jumped to 30%. Before you know it, you're selling rice at almost 900,000 naira per ton. And it happens across all commodity train. So the most important thing for us is we should have to look at our major consumption, right? We have rice paddy, we have cooking oil. Now, one sweet thing about cooking oil is also gotten, aside from bleaching palm oil, there's a nut for once you process the palm oil from the palm kernel. There's a hard shell. Once you crack the hard shell, there's what they call a palm kernel nut. It's just like coconut, a very small seed. They also process that to cooking oil. There's a company in Ibadan here, also a customer of ours, that we supply that to. Like, with that, you have very low cholesterol, very good for the health. But most of our palm oil supply chain is not even tapped. I mean, if I don't have the full data, but if, for example, we have, let's say, 1 million hectares of palm oil trees in Nigeria, we are tapping, let's say, 100,000 of it. That's to tell you the deficiency that we've had. In the last 8 months, I've been in the entire Southeast and South, and I saw palm trees that are just wasting, like practically wasting. No one is coming to buy them. And I'm like, you know what? I want to build the largest palm oil refining mill. I don't want to own any farm, because I mean the palm trees are a lot. I'll build a palm oil refining mill and tell this subsistence farmer, because usually they are always owned by family members and community, and it's a whole lot. If Imo State has a landmass of, let's say, 200,000 square meter, about between 120 or 110 is covered with palm trees.
So the question is, you said output is up, right? But the NBS is saying that the money we make from these things are nonsense. And like I just quoted the figures for you, quarter 3.
Yes.
So where is the disconnect? Quarter 3, we're importing this palm oil you see people are coming to buy. Nigeria is exporting about 4.4 billion worth of palm oil. This is just quarter 3 alone. This is just to West Africa. I'm not saying what we to. So where is the disconnect? You said there's palm oil in the village, but we're exporting palm oil. And palm oil is expensive in the market. It's all disjointed. What's going on?
So the problem is supply chain, right? We have a whole lot of people that every day they wake up and they're seeing these palm trees in front of them. And you have a generation that did this as a business, that the next generation did not even take it as a very important business to actually engage in. So I'll give you a community in Imo State that we started with last year, in Amiibo, in Imo State. Do you know that of the trees that they had around them, they had about 4,350 palm trees. Each month, so palm trees produce every 3 months, depending on the age and the rest. So during the peak period, which is from now, February down, they always harvest a minimum of 150 trees. Maximum, the highest they've ever done, like in the last 5 years, is 1,200 out of 4,350. And the question is, why are you not harvesting this thing and, creating a whole lot of value for yourself? This is money that is hanging. And they're like, that's whenever they mill, they take it to the market, local market, and they sell. So whenever they mill, within a week, they might sell 50, 25 liter jerry can, which is the maximum, sometimes 20 a week. And I'm like, man, this is not what you guys are going to take it into the market.
Okay.
So I'm
just hearing that, I hear you just want to get Cyrus to speak. I'm just, it just doesn't make sense to me how the same nation can make a lot of output, then export a lot, import a lot, and still has supply chain issues. Everything is just, it doesn't make, these are numbers from MBS, so that might be more, Cyrus, what's your take on this? Cyrus, hi.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kalu. I requested for the mic when Olumide brought up the whole conversation around agriculture, and I do agree with you that it doesn't really make much sense. And yes, we have certain agricultural products that we have like huge output. For example, Nigeria has not had any issue like in terms of cassava production in this country. We are the largest producer of cassava in sub-Saharan Africa, and other things like that, tomatoes, onion, potatoes, even yam, right? Like food crops, right? But there are other things that I would say that we are not doing as much as many stakeholders or even the government themselves will have us believe, like the rice, the millet, the maize, or the wheat. So, and those are the things that we find ourselves importing or putting restriction on importation, and it's driving up price. And why this is interesting to the conversation around inflation is that when the LBS came out last week, and they brought out a new tweaked data, by their own methodology, expanding the indices of inflation figure to include energy, to include imported food items and other things like that, just to make it look moderate and stuff. I made a statement and I made a comment on certain forum that, look, that's not our problem. Nigerian inflation is driven by two major things, right? First and foremost, government excessive spending, right? Nigeria has been so used to expansive deficit to the point that we never have any conversation around balancing our budget anymore. It may interest people to know that while we're fighting the civil war in this, in 67, 68, we had balanced budget. Right, because the person at the end of affair at that point, Awolowo, was very, very frugal about what exactly is the priority for the government and how much should be allocated for what and what not. If you are not serious about reducing your deficit and your expenditures, and you're just spending as much as you bring in 2023, for example, in 2024, Nigeria had a spur in its revenue collection due to removal of subsidy and FS devaluation, right? But that does not reflect in our deficit. Our deficit keeps expanding if you look at it. So, if you don't fix that, and what you do is tweak the figure, you are not helping yourself, number one, and you're not helping the CBN, number two, which is doing all it can to tighten the system so that there will be less money supply and there will be less borrowing, particularly to the government. The second thing which Olumide mentioned, which I think it's very important to this conversation, is agricultural output. Olumide said something about agriculture contributing about 26-27% to our GDP. Absolutely, yes, that's always been that case for decades now, right? But if you look at the quarterly increase or the quarterly growth of agriculture, it has not exceeded 1.1%. In other words, it's just, even though there are a lot of activities going on in that sector, it is not growing. It is not expanding compared to things like banking, service, telecos, and others, like finance. But it contributes a lot. There are a lot of players there, a lot of jobs there, a lot of informal sectors there and whatnot. But it is not growing. It is not having any kind of growth, right? So it's always around 1.1, 1.2 there about growth every quarter. You can check it. So if the government is serious about getting inflation, moderating inflation, it should not be about tweaking data. It should be about doing what they can. Nigeria is an agrarian country, to increase supply. We are not increasing supply. Let's not deceive ourselves. Yes, activities are going on. Yes, there are more players there. Yes, there are a lot of people participating in that sector, whether you're talking about livestock or cash crop or food crop or whatnot, across the value chain. But in terms of growth, in terms of investment, in terms of capital being joined to that sector, it is not happening, right? So the government needs to take that seriously. First and foremost, it will drive down food price. It will drive down cost of food, right? Which will also have effect on inflation. Secondly, it also diversify our export and our earning. You mentioned something about the trend that's happening in the cocoa industry, that's happening in the palm oil and others. These are things that we should be taking advantage of. Low-hanging food is taking advantage of instead of focusing on oil, because oil is exposed to, global
global factors like, whether it comes up, it goes down, whatever Trump does, whatever Russia does and whatnot. These are things that Nigeria can be taken advantage of, like Ghana. Ghana, for example, cocoa is like the primary source of FS for them, not oil. So these are, and it's not that they have more than we do, it's just that we've forsaken that part and we're not doing enough to ensure that we diversify our export, right?
I hear you, but let me ask you a question. In terms of, does the MBS data change anything for you? If you're a businessman, does it change anything for you?
Absolutely no. I think it's a noonday lie, and I think it's very unfair to people who actually trust them as an authority to provide, some kind of integrity and independence of government interference. But what they are doing recently with all the old manipulation of data, all you need to look at is that even if there are two things that they say they consider in the change of the figure. The first one is proximity in terms of the year that is regarded as the base year, as well as the methodology they use. Like what are the indicators that they consider? Those are the two major things that gave them 24%. Now, if you look at those two things, how are they? How are they positive? Like, as prices drop fundamentally, you say 10%, right? That's a fundamental drop from 2024 to 2025, right? From January 2024 to 2025, has that happened? So you have to be lying to come up with that kind of figure. So, and the indices that you are using, like energy, imported food, and whatnot, they've not really dropped, so to speak. So they have not really told us, the NPS, how they come up with this figure. It's just a way for them to do some kind of cross-dressing. And one of the things I heard that the reason why they are doing is that it's one of those indices that international communities, the international creditors and rating agencies consider to assess the country whether they are viable for certain loans and credit or not. And bringing that inflation might help them in that regard. So they just want to look good, to the international community. And I don't think that will help in the long run.
All right.
Because it will just one more. Okay, go on.
No, I'm here. I'm agreeing with you. So in essence, they are. Should we say cooking? In essence, they are massaging the books to be able to.
Yeah, they are. But it will do two things. First and foremost, it will make the very objective of reducing inflation. It will make the government lax. Number one. Number two, it also forfeit or defeat the very objective or mandate of CBN to help more liquidity. Nigerian money supply keep increasing, quarterly. If you look at data, it's over 1 or something trillion now, and it keep increasing like that. So if the CBN goes back on its mandate to curb that inflationary pressure by having a dovish view or dovish stand, it's going to affect how much is being borrowed out there, and going to affect money supply and end up compounding inflation. So they're actually doing a very, very bad work.
All right, let's see what happens in the coming months, right? Let's see. Hang on there. Let's get Alien. Alien, what's on your mind? You are, Alien, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've said this several spaces, and I've also heard Cyrus also say it on other spaces. The inflation values NBS has given us is not corresponding to the reality on ground. And, for me, I don't think they manipulated any figure. I feel like, they played a smart one. They just looked at different parameters and they saw which one gave them the best outcome, saying using the base year as 2024. And I think on other spaces, also gone to check top countries in the world. For example, the USA still uses a base year of 1980 something or 18 something. It's one very far year. I checked Germany. Germany still uses 2015 as base year. France still uses 2015 as base year. Several countries still use this thing as base year, and they are still in single-digit inflation levels. So, and when I listen to those people, pro-government people talk, they tell you, this is the year. 2024 was just the best year. If we had put it less than 2024, we're coming out of COVID-19. Are you saying other countries did not go through the COVID-19 issue? Some other people were telling me that was when Tinubu's Renew Hope mandate started. So 2024 is like the best year. Subsidies were out. So that is when 2024 was just the best year to pick and so on and so forth. It doesn't make sense to me at all. It doesn't really make sense to me. And instead of you thinking of tweaking figures to give you the best good chances of getting over, why don't you give something that is realistic so that we can sit down, dig our hands, put our hands together as a country and look for how best to make sure these inflation levels come down. Now, your inflation levels went 10%, your MPR is not moving. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But the MPR has not changed. It means that they do not trust, the CBN does not even trust the values out there. They do not trust the what do you call it, the cost of food production out there and so on and so forth. So for me, I will not believe this result until I see very decisive steps by the government to cut down their spendings, by the government to ensure production mainly in agriculture, to ensure that we are also exporting, improving our export levels in the country, and several other parameters. The CBN also making some very, very strategic plans also, even though I must confess that they have been doing quite a lot. CBN has been doing quite a lot, but government spendings, agriculture is something that is having problem with us. And I remember, lastly, I would just say, Kalu, I told you on this page that I still believe, I know you will not still agree with me, but I told you that I still believe that we should have subsidized one of these industries, like the agricultural sector. I heard us complaining of how in the rural areas we have palm oil, but we're still importing billions of nairas, or is it dollars, of palm oil to this country. The supply chain is the issue. When people look at how much it will cost for you to bring it down from wherever to this place to that place, you start asking yourself, is it worth it? So yes, I know that there is this reluctance of to get into the farm and so on and so forth, but I still feel like we need to work on our...
I agree with you. Now, first, I agree with you that we should subsidize food. I've said, we should subsidize food. There's nothing wrong with subsidy. Just that the word subsidy is now a dirty word in Nigeria because we've made it so. There's nothing wrong in PMS subsidy. There's nothing wrong in food subsidy. The problem was that when we ran in the past, we could not afford it. We can't afford a food subsidy. PMS subsidy, we couldn't afford it. Now that we have removed the subsidy on PMS, I would have thought that the president would just take quarter of that money and subsidize food. If he had done that, he won't be getting most of this beat he's getting. If he had taken the money he got from the PMS subsidy removal and just taken a quarter and just imported, even if it's just rice alone, he imported, and rice was selling for 10,000 naira a bag, he won't be getting the blowback he's getting. He wouldn't. But that.
Sorry, let me please devil's advocate here. So, I totally agree with you. But I'm also, sometimes I try to look at the other side, why it's that way. So, we're coming from a place where we subsidize electricity, we subsidize education, we subsidize FX, we subsidize petrol. And now, subsidy still plays a part in some sectors that we're not still talking about. And the government is trying to liberalize those things because the truth of the matter is that first, they were trying to stabilize the naira, and that came at a cost. A lot of Nigerians are forgetting that. The treasury bills they are getting at 26%, and this means the government is borrowing at a high premium. So we need to look at the fact that we are coming from a time of mismanagement, and things need to be adjusted. My problem with the government is that they are immune to the reforms that they are creating. What I mean by immune to the reforms they are creating, they don't look like they are suffering. They don't look like they are cutting their coats. They don't look like they are part of the problem, and also trying to show to Nigerians that because you can't tell someone, you can't tell a child that you can't eat in the afternoon, and he sees you that you are even buying food in the club or a party, So that's the problem, Kalu, because there's no money anywhere. Where are we going to get the money from? If you look at our budget, if you look at government revenue, look at wherever I look at it, I'm just looking at it that I hope we're not going to print money to really.
But why are they printing money? That's what we're printing. Again, let's go back to the point I'm making. I'm going to ask. So, Kilo, I hear you speak very soon. Let me go back to the point I'm making. When you remove subsidy, it's a revenue event. It's a revenue event, new revenue. If you take away subsidy from PMS imports, what you've done is that money has flowed to CBN. It's a revenue event. Now, what did they use that revenue for? If you look at the first sharing after subsidy was removed, they took 50% and they put it in a fund. It's called infrastructure something. I don't know where that money is today. Then they were even discussing giving Nigerians 8,000. Can you remember? It was 8,000 naira. They were even discussing giving Nigerians. It was the whole shout that made them say, okay, we're going to increase this, do that. Then when the thing now became even worse, the shouting became worse. They had even, when we even had the public demonstrations, they said, okay, we're going to pass ASAP, the accelerated strategy plan and all that, right? ASAP said we're going to subsidize food. We're going to subsidize clearing of land. We're going to subsidize fertilizer. But even as we're doing that, we're going to import food. This is the government's own plan. We're going to import food because we understand that food is 57% of the average Nigerian's household spend. 57. This is just what MPR is. It could be more. How you know a poor country, they spend more on food. So the government said they're going to subsidize. Till today, this was June of 2020. They've not done it. So this is their own words.
No, because the same argument is that the government is now looking at the fact that if they subsidize food, farmers will lose their jobs.
But today, okay, there's a farmer here. I mean, this was the same point that Buhari said, right? So he closed the borders and said the farmers should supply food. But we all know you can't take tomato. Tony Lumelu bought a mango processing plant. What's the name in Benue State? If you go to Benue, you see mangoes on the floor wasting. Tony Olum went there and built a mango processing plant. He couldn't get raw materials to make mango. No roads from the village. Dangote has a tomato processing plant in Kano, one of the largest in sub-Saharan Africa. They could not get tomato. Why? No road from the village to the plant in tomato. Lagos has the largest rice milling plant in sub-Saharan Africa. No rice paddy. You can go on. Anywhere you see largest manufacturing plant is in Nigeria, but no supply. There are no roads. There are no rails. If you go to my village, there's cassava everywhere in my village. But if you go from my village to even Apa, your motorcycle will go bad. The roads are not there. So that's what this company just told us. The cost to take goods from the village where the farmers are making these things to the way it is processed, it's non-existent. If you come to the States, every farm you see a silo. And there's always a rail track. Where I live is near whatever. They have a big, huge farms. They have a railway point there. They have silos. So there's a process to take output to the silos and then they're trained to be processed. We don't have it in Nigeria. From 1999, we have been building the Lagos to Ibadan Express Road. I just thought to you that President Tinubu has giving new money to expand the road. This same road from 1999 till today, 2025, has not been completed. Even Ghana, even Rwanda cannot take 25 years to build. I don't know. I don't want to complain a little bit. And I hear you are playing devil's advocate. I hear you, and I hope you understand you are doing devil's advocate. Not supporting it. You are just doing devil's advocate. But we're moving too slow. And they said they would subsidize food. I didn't say it. They said they would subsidize the food. They didn't subsidize the food. Go and price rice today. I was in Nigeria. A plate of rice. The money is like sefa. You can't understand what's going on. Food is so expensive. How can you do anything if you can't eat? Food is national security. If America today, national security. If there's no food today, police cannot stop anything that's going to happen. If people cannot eat, what will they do? Will they kill themselves?
It's affecting our market, like I said. It's making food is the major. I was telling my friends that if Nigerians spend less on food, the capital market, leave for investors for a while, the capital market will improve. Yeah, because exactly. What the average Nigerian spends on food, Carlo, to be honest with you, that alone, almost every Nigerian can buy a banking stock now. Yeah.
Look, there's a reason why politicians give rice and not books during elections. There's a reason why they give rice. In America, no one gives you rice. They give you a phone. They give you whatever, because here it's not food.
Sorry,
yeah.
The government are arguing that they have reduced the cost. For example, a bag of beans right now, I think
because of harvest now. Of harvest, you got the harvest.
Of course, but they don't tell people that. They will just paint it that, it's our renewed hope, whatever, that has brought a bag of rice and so on and so forth down. So I just hope Nigerians are smart enough to say all these things.
Okay, let me get Kilo. Kilo, you got a hands up. Kilo, please go ahead, Kilo. Kilo, that's
okay.
Yeah. How you doing, sir?
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Carlo. So I quickly want to touch on certain things that people have touched on. On the issue about the rebasing methodology and whatnot, I would disagree that it actually makes us look better per se, because come on, at 24%, it means that prices are doubling every 3 years. Yes, at 35, 36%, it means prices were doubling every 2 years or so. So the thing is, it's yes, from 36 to 24% looks like a drop, but in reality, it means that your naira is being devalued every 3 or so years. So the thing is, it really doesn't make us look good. Now, of course, when you look at the weighting, it clearly doesn't make sense that you are putting agriculture at what? It's not 24, 25% they're putting it. It's just so ridiculous. If you look at empirical studies done by both loan companies, academics and whatnot in Nigeria, you find out that Nigerians spend 60, sometimes even over 60% of their income. I know you were saying 57%. 57% is even more on the low end.
Just the
in some studies I've seen, it's closer to about 60%, or even more than that Nigerians are spending on food alone. So the question you now ask yourself is, how do you then, as a country or as a government, then weight the basket of goods that the typical Nigerian buys and put like a third of the weighting on it? It just smacks of being unrealistic and everything. It's like the same thing with the unemployment statistics, where somebody working is not one
hour a week you're employed.
Exactly, 1 hour a week you are employed. So basically, that means that if my madam tells me that I should look at his shop every afternoon so that he goes to pick his child from public school, it means that I'm employed. Yeah. That's literally what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
So and of course, even despite that, you still see that our unemployment is 5%. If 5% of your population cannot get 1 hour of paid work, you have a crisis on your hand. And I bet if they adjusted it to the previous methodology, which makes more sense, you will probably get unemployment of 20-30%, which is crisis level, which explains a lot of the insecurity we have today. You can put as many police officers as you want. If a lot of young people don't have jobs, there will be a lot of crime and socioeconomic problems going on. And of course, we are seeing how that is playing out across in the country, even with the drugs crisis and the other things we are getting. So the thing is, it just smacks of a lot of funny hanky-panky games that the government is playing on that end. Now, on the issue of agriculture itself, the thing is, as the agricultural trader has said, and I think he actually hits the nail on there, because we always hear this narrative of the problem with the agricultural system that is because of insecurity. You always hear this saying, insecurity is the problem. Yes, insecurity is a problem, but it is not the major problem. If you look at the numbers, Nigeria actually does not produce enough food. So you look at numbers like milk, numbers like of tomato production. You see even things that have to do with meat production. If you divide it by the country, so per capita production, you see that Nigeria actually doesn't produce so much. Now, despite the fact that we don't produce as much, especially when you compare it with a lot of African countries, and when I mean African countries, I'm not even talking of, let's say, South Africa, which is like ×3, ×4 on average when it comes to per capita production of food. We're even talking of places like Ghana that is, give or take, about our income per head, or let's say about twice our income per head now because of the devaluation and whatnot. You still see that Nigeria produces less than them per capita. And despite that fact that we produce less than them per capita, we waste them. So that is part of what is causing the problem. Now, we should not forget that the federal government got into the game of giving subsidies. The Anchor Borrower Program was a subsidy, was sort of like a shot in the arm, an investment in the agricultural sector. The problem that we're having is that we launch a lot of these subsidy programs and they never really reach the intended target. It's either that, of course, maybe somebody gets it and uses it to go and buy cars or buy some other thing. So the fact that we're even printing money to invest in agriculture is not increasing supply, and so of course we are getting inflation. We're just getting food inflation. We're getting inflation so many places. I always tell people that I think if you have to summarize Nigeria's economy is essentially a shortage economy. We have so much money flying around, but little in the way of production of real goods and services, which is what is leading to the inflation problem, the rent crisis that we are facing, the food crisis, the inflation in cars, inflation in almost everything you can talk about, even inflation in education, because every single thing will print a lot of money, but we're not expanding supply to go. Then, as the agricultural trader said, sorry, just give me a minute, I'll soon wrap up. We also do not have an integrated supply chain of a lot of even these goods in our economy. So, for instance, you have lots of palm kernel or lots of palm trees in Imo State, in Enugu, and the like. But the downstream of that, there isn't a lot of supply. As in the supply chain, the value chain is broken in many ways. And that is why you have a Dangote tomato factory that is rusting. Last week, I think it was Business Day that talked about it. I think it was Business Day or Nairametrics. I was talking about the Dangote tomato factory that is basically moribund at this point. And you talked about the Elumelu thing. It goes from one good to the other good to the other good. So that is part of what we are having as a problem. We are not investing. We just do subsidy. The subsidy just goes to people buying cars or people using it to go and flex in Lagos in one club somewhere. This literally happens in the country. So, of course, when you invest or you launch an agricultural program or investment program in certain sectors, you just won't see it in the production numbers because people are not doing it or they are not engaging in production. Or if they are not engaging in production, they are engaging in low value added production. People still using whole cutlass to do agriculture when we could be investing in tractors, combined harvesters, improved seedlings and the like. So these are some of the issues that is causing a lot of the inflation that we're experiencing. So when people say, "Oh, we are printing money," see, printing money is not necessarily a problem if you are expanding the supply of goods and services. That is what we are not doing. We are not expanding the supply of goods and services in the Nigerian economy, and so of course everything is coming out in the form of price inflation of everyday goods and services. Thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree with all the comments. Completely agree. I mean, it's a supply issue, right? The Nigerian economy is not supplying enough. We have no power to supply. So the cocoa we're saying we're importing, Olumide is talking about Presco. We have the cocoa guys all over Ibadan, But to produce that cocoa paste needs diesel. If you add the cost of diesel to your cost of producing cocoa, it goes up. So it's cheaper to then import that cocoa from a country that doesn't have generator power. Maybe it's just public power. It's just that simple. Same with all the other stuff we make here. It's so expensive to produce in Nigeria. We've got to bring that cost down so that we can do import substitution to avoid the dollar economy. Otherwise, we're just going in a circle, right? We subsidize, but the subsidy doesn't work, so we import and all that. Let me look at Nigel. Bright Ibitoye.
Yes.
Welcome to the party. So
yes,
how are you doing today?
Hi, Carlo. How are you guys doing?
We're doing very well.
Olumide, how are you? Nice to hear you guys' voice again. Here we come again, Nigeria. Please let me start by saying one thing. I think for the first time, you guys are talking exactly what I've always been saying. But the only problem I have with it is that we isolate it only to the federal government. Yes, federal government had the capacity for the physical side. But honestly speaking, if these things are not being handled by the sub-regionals, it's a joke. And I will tell you why. You see, you said subsidy is not bad. Subsidy, food should be subsidized. And I've been saying this thing right from last year, from the beginning of last year. I said states that cannot pay 30,000 salary, all of a sudden they can pay 75,000, 85,000 naira minimum wage. But that same state find it difficult to spend 1 billion naira every month from all the billions they get from the center for the increments, for the removal of subsidy, to subsidize food from the state level. Whether we like it or not, if the food is not being subsidized from the state, rather than allowing us to be looking at the state with the kind of money they are spending now. For instance, states are building flyovers even when it's not needed. They are investing into something that cannot bring returns. I have not seen any state building a cassava plant, cassava factory that can make cassava into finished product. I have not seen any state that is building a plant that can make chocolate. I have not seen any state that can even produce juice like Benue, you said. I have not seen any state that can make a yam a finished product. And for me, that alone shows that the people that are in the arms of affairs in our state, they lack the understanding of the fact that they are CEOs of a company, not a state. And for me, if we continue to think that the entire thing had to be run by federal government, then we're far from it. Again, from the beginning of this year, local government are getting their funds direct from the federal government, no longer coming through the state government. You know what they were doing, the state government? When they finished the local government election, ask the local government chairman to bring the money back to them. No Nigerian is saying anything to it. Because if the local government is working, it means that those health centers that are having issues, they will be dealt with. Those little farming community, the local government will be able to finance them. They'll be able to cover the food inflation from the local level. Nobody is saying anything about it. And that's why I always say that sometimes we pay too much attention to the center. Again, let me go back to the rebasing. Somebody said that the rebasing is just France has not done it, Germany has not done it, US has not done it. I have said this thing. Sometimes Nigerians will live in euphoria. Why do you compare yourself to people that are far ahead of you? They don't have the kind of problem we have. Our own problem is peculiar. In some years back, when Okojo-Iweala did it, everybody called her magician. From $200 from 100 and something billion economy, when they rebased that time, we went to 500 billion. It was a good thing that time. Everybody was clapping for her. We are doing well at that time. But again, it's being redone now. Perhaps we don't like the government in power, and then we make it sound like they were not doing the appropriate thing. I think for me, I agree completely with what Olumide said. There are certain things we need to work on. And just like Kalu said, in the state, in the country, part of the world you live, you could see how they move production of farming. And that, again, goes back to what I'm saying, state. If Lagos State can build a reserve, who doesn't have the land, it means that they're going to buy from those states. They've invested into into Niger State. They've invested into Kebbi. Again, remember the biggest rice plant is in Lagos. Again, they don't have paddy. I think they should have gotten a waiver from federal government to bring in paddy from abroad so that way they can reduce the cost of rice. If we are not calling those states into order, no matter what the federal do, it will just be a surface scratching until the other sub-regional states start performing the same way. Not even up to, let us not even do 100%. Let us just do 50 or 60% of what the center is doing, and then let local government do 30. I am telling you, if we do that consistently for 2 years, this food inflation, I can assure you that it will go back to a single digit. But as long as we continue to think that the food problem in Nigeria can only be solved by the federal, I mean, we've been shouting security. Let's be honest to ourselves. Security is down now, whether we like it or not. Security is not as crazy as it used to be. People are going back to farm.
Oh, come on,
security
man.
is down.
Come on, man.
I live in Nigeria.
Come on, man.
Come on. I live in Nigeria.
Do you live? What state do you live in? What state do you live in?
I live in Abuja.
Okay.
I drive to Kaduna.
I hear you.
Let me wait.
Can you go and live in Kebbi and for a week, and then let's say if Kebbi or wherever the bandits are, security is down, but bro, you're making it. That's a casual statement, man. There are still bandits. The general is still under kidnap. They still kidnapped the general. I can share the story with you.
Kalu, in America, they are still killing people with gun. They've killed more people in America this year than Nigeria.
What are you talking about?
Nigeria.
There are 300 million people in America. Per capita, how many people die of gun in America compared to Nigeria?
Let me finish what I'm saying. Let me finish. If you say that security in Nigeria had not reduced, then you are not being honest. Ask people that live in Abuja. 2 years ago, you cannot drive from Abuja to Kaduna. You cannot drive from Kaduna to Katsina.
The issue is about, let's make sure we're saying the right thing. We're talking about agriculture, right? So food, inflation, MPR. So let me see.
I am telling you, Kalu, I do yam business. I get yams from the villages. I get yam every week. I am telling you what I know. People are going back farm. I'm not saying the security is 100%. But the security is not as volatile as it used to be. Get me well. I'm not saying it is 100% perfect. But I am telling you, we are far better now than what we are 2 years, 3 years ago.
So we have to speak.
Go. But the thing is that there are still, even the Southeast we're talking about, it wasn't as bad as it was before. Do you understand? Except we just want to blanket everything.
So I want to let me make this point I'm making again, and I'm being very specific. The issue is food. Okay. The issue is food insecurity. Food drives inflation. Absolutely. The point I am making is that there is still insecurity in the food growing areas in Nigeria, whether it's Kaduna, southern Kaduna, whether it's Benue and Plateau, whether it's bandits in Kebbi. That there's still ISIS in Borno. Yeah, if you Google the report, if you just go to Google, they still kidnapped an army general. No, hold on, hold on.
We are talking of we that we are on
ground. Listen. I don't want to mute you. You talk, I talk. Please, I am making this point for. I've not interrupted you, but when you say you have to be very careful. When you say this insecurity is down, you say you live in Abuja. They still kidnapped an army general in the same location you are speaking about. There's still ISIS in the Borno axis. There are still bandits and that's what's causing the food supply to be shaky. They just banned open mining in Plateau. The governor they just banned. They said complete total ban on mining.
Yeah.
It's so you can't say don't go to Google. Where do you get your news from? Do you go to all the states in Nigeria? You can't say you go to all the states in Nigeria.
No, but I understand what you're saying. But I am saying there is a better than what it used to be.
I agree with you.
I am saying
I agree with you.
People are back to farm. I just tell you now.
I agree with you.
Yeah, we are not arguing that, but I think you are missing what we are saying. Also, that the fact that bandits still pay levies, because there was a story I was working on, and I was trying to understand why farmers say they pay taxes. because I know MPRs do not charge farmers taxes in the farm. I was trying to understand the black tax, how it works, and large percentage of farmers pay taxes, and yeah, you could argue that there have been some wins from the military in terms of bandits, particularly but from the discussion, as the cost of food reduced relatively in Nigeria in terms of from the macro side, yes. Micro side, no. Why no? Because the cost effective is not right now. That's why I deleted a tweet. There was a tweet I made some time ago. I said the cost of rice has reduced. It wasn't that it wasn't correct, but it wasn't proportional. The places where rice reduced, for example, I did sample was higher in some places, was lower in some places. So it hasn't been uniform. So we have supply chain issues, Carl. You are totally right. We have transportation issues, and most importantly, I still feel that agriculture is underinvested. How can a state like Anambra, for example, have a budget of less than 5 billion on agriculture? That is an abomination. I looked at agriculture.
That's exactly what I would say. It's a state. It's a state that needs to invest more.
But the federal government has a rule that is not also functioning, because see, we can
Fortunately, we agree.
The federal government is not showing, because look at least during the Obasanjo's era, during the past leaders, we had a road. There's always this, even though we know that sometimes it can be propaganda. We have one food policy program that the media and everybody will focus on. Tell me one media agricultural program that is popular in Nigeria that people are aware of that will solve hunger.
This is a story from the Punch. This is dated January the 7th. January the 7th. This is, let me quote the headline: Niger State asks villagers to suspend farming over bandits explosives. That's IED. So the governor of Niger State, we just talked about Niger State, where he said they were expending money on agriculture and all that. We just talked about them. The governor asked the farmers in Shiroro local government area to suspend farming because the bandits have put IEDs in the farms. This is January 7th, 2025. I agree insecurity is down, but let's not paper this. This is January.
That's what I'm saying. So I am not saying it's perfect.
Yeah, but that's why I corrected you now. You are saying Google that you live in Lagos. This is in Niger. This is the largest land size in Nigeria. This guy is into agriculture, and I can share it with you if you want to share this headline, which you punch.
No, I know I have all those things. I have them. What I'm saying is that, again, if states, and please get me what I'm saying, if there are states that they don't have as much as security they have in other states, but yet they don't do agriculture, what do they do with their money? They build flyovers, build stadiums. Who builds stadium when you are having a food crisis? That's my point. There are things we should prioritize now. Let's agree that federal government is not doing 100% what they are supposed to do. But you state, you are getting more money now. I think subsidizing food, putting more money in agriculture wouldn't be a bad idea. That's just my stand. Thank you very much.
All right, fantastic. And again, insecurity is down. I mean, we don't have Boko Haram flags in any local government area. We don't have these things like they were in the past years. But the problem with inflation in Nigeria is food. And the issue with food in Nigeria is someone has said supply chain. What supply chain? Break it down to its basic elements. Is that farmers cannot even go to their farms to produce. You see report, I'm reading another report here. Farmers are paying bandits tax to go and harvest their crops. So if farmers are paying tax to go and harvest their crops, you know what that means. We have a farmer here called Ahmed. I used to call him from Northeast. He will give you stories.
From the north.
Hold on, I thought you've dropped the mic. You've dropped the mic. So that I'm not trying to say government system. The federal government is in charge of security. The states have to follow the federal government's lead with vigilantes. But again, the states are not spending. The point you made about the states not spending in line with the government is also material and key. The state governments have got to also look at food and invest in food. That's just the truth. Olumide, is it Okumo oil palm that bandits went to Okumo that the white guy had to leave. The Okumo.
Yeah.
This in Edo. Okumo. So they have this is a quoted company. Yeah, quoted company. But they are having issues because so who provides security for that guy? So that means to do palm oil in Nigeria to do. So I don't want to expose our laundry in public.
Yes, I know. No, Carlos, serious security. Even the fact that we can see it has reduced, it's still a serious problem. Like I've always said, if you want some of the Nigerian consumer goods sector, particularly all those flour mill, you want them next to do very well. If you want them to do very well, because I remember those times when Guinness, many of these manufacturing companies rely on agricultural produce. When bandits took over, it had an effect on stock market investing also in that sector. So I totally agree with you that yes, even though it might have moderated, a lot of problems remain because bandits, that cost will be transferred to the consumer. Farmers you don't expect farmers to run charity. And also, most importantly, our supply chains are awful. How many agricultural companies are listed in Nigerian stock market? Less than half a dozen. Less than half a dozen, to be fair. Fully agricultural companies, less than half a dozen. And the funniest thing, the ones that are listed are doing very well. So what is the incentive for government not to encourage more? That is what pains me more. Because look at Presco Kumo, Okitikupa Pamoy, for example. They do better than all insurance stocks, all insurance companies in Nigeria. There's no insurance company in Nigeria that's giving you 100 billion naira profit before tax. No insurance company.
Yeah.
Why are you not investing in them?
Let me tell you a story, Limde. This is first-hand story. Let me give you a first-hand story. There's a guy I know, big man. He wanted to set up a tomato plant in Borno State, right? Was it Borno? Well, I think it was Bauchi or Borno. He went and got investors from Canada. I don't know if I can mention all the company, but that tomato canning company you see on your shelves when you travel abroad, that company, they came to Nigeria. They imported all the goods, in containers. They imported everything to Nigeria. The man had the farm. He was going to open up a tomato processing farm. This farm was supposed to just get the tomatoes, dice it, put it in the cans, and sent to Canada. It will be packaged, i.e., with that same label, the same overseas label, but it will say packaged in Nigeria. It will be sold in Canada. It was a total FDI. They came to Nigeria. The containers were there. All the executives from Canada flew to Nigeria, and they were to go into the opening ceremony the next day. He said the next day, the army guy came and told them, listen, there are some armed robbers in the bush, so they don't want the white guys to go there, that they want to do an army operation. That was an armed robber. So they went back to their hotel. That was the start of Boko Haram. So the next thing, they were seeing fighter jets bombing this so-called place where they had armed robbers. The Canadians stayed 1 day, 2 days. They had to go back to Canada, but they've seen everything. So for the next 3 years, that guy did not go back to that farm. The containers were still there. When he went back, miraculously, the containers were still there, unopened. The farmers that were there were farming. They will show him C-bomb, unexploded munitions from the Air Force all over the field. So this is like, this guy, I'm just commenting, this guy wrote to the Canadians and returned their money. The FDI that they gave him, he returned the money back to them. They said, no, this is force majeure who were there. They said, no, he returned their dollars back to them, that the thing has not worked. It's still there. I don't know if I can mention the guy's name, but this insecurity and agriculture is tied at the hip. It's tied at the hip. With Nigeria, the largest employer of labor in Nigeria is agriculture, and they are subsistence farmers. We don't do mechanized farming in Nigeria. We have one or two, but the bulk of the farming is done by mechanized, by subsistence farmers. And those guys live in small hamlets. They don't see any government. They don't see any fertilizers. They don't see anything that we're talking about on Twitter. It's just they farm their 20 plots. They get 10 bags of maize. That's their currency for the next year. If they want to marry, they give you maize. If they want to buy motorcycle, they give you maize. They don't use naira. They don't use. That's basically subsistence farming. Anything that destroys that living, it affects us in Lagos. Because the thing we're facing in Lagos is that those guys are not producing the beans or the yam or the meat to send down to us in Lagos for us to consume. That's what's going on. Dangote, I told you, Google it. Dangote tomato factory in Kano cannot get tomato. Elumelu's mango processing plant in Benue cannot get mango. The Lagos rice mill in Lagos cannot get rice mill. You can go round everywhere. Once you see largest rice mill, it's always in Nigeria. They're the 3 biggest rice mills in Sub-Saharan Africa: Lagos, Kogi, Kano. They are all Nigeria. Largest tomato, Nigeria. Largest LLG, Nigeria. Largest cement plant. Everything is largest, but our prices are also the largest. There's a disconnect somewhere. There's something that Nigerian economy is not jiving, where we have all this massive industrialization, but we are still subsistence farming. If there's no rain, we can't farm for that year. If there's no rain, that if rain does not fall, we can't farm. No irrigation, no drip irrigation. Nothing about it. That the largest economy in Africa is waiting for rain to fall so they can start to farm. So if rain is delayed, no farming. Pest. The other day you hear tomatoes were expensive. Why? That little insect that goes to Kaduna and destroys all the tomato farms. The little insect. Is it tango? What's the name of that? I wrote about it one time. Till today we're not doing inland. What's it called? Greenhouse farming of tomato. We are not doing it. When I used to go to Bauchi, if you enter Bauchi, you see this. I think it was a school. They had greenhouses. When the former PDP guy that was the governor, was in charge of Bauchi State, I saw those things. Greenhouses for tomatoes. They were there. I went back to Bauchi maybe a few years ago. They were all tattered. Same thing in Ibadan. The only cocoa factory that was able to process cocoa into cocoa paste and the rest, it closed down. They were owing banks. They closed down. What's the name of that? Is it Amcon also took them over? That's a strategic industry. It should have been saved. We should have given them money to save them, but it's closed down. The Omoko palm oil plant, armed robbers have gone there. So it's difficult. So Nigeria is a difficult place to do business, and we just need to focus on ourselves. We can do everything in this country, but it's difficult. That's the point. We do a lot of talking. We're chasing Binance. We do a lot of talking, all the flashy things. But the nitty-gritty, the making sure our hometowns are secure, we seem not to have a hand on it. I saw them moving against the other terrorist group because they were foreigners. But there are local bandits still here. We have not eradicated them. How sophisticated are those bandits that we cannot, even if we have to employ mercenaries to deal with these guys, we should have done it a long time ago. Get rid of them, then the president can implement his plan, clear land, so these farmers can go from subsistence to at least minimum mechanization to even grow food. We can't be importing Gary. How can Nigeria be importing Gary? It's absurd. And if you think I'm lying, Google it. Nigeria is importing Gary from India. You see the pack, red pack, is sold in Abuja stores. Google it. Don't take my word for it. You see it there. Financial engineering, how are you doing, sir? You got the floor. Financial engineering, I've got you, I've got Cyrus. Cyrus, don't hop in before financial engineering hits it. Cyrus, what's your mind?
Yeah, thank you very much. I just when we have conversations, we have to put this in context. And the last speaker, some of the things that he said were out of context. He was talking about the GDP rebase that was done under the Jonathan administration. And if you look at the rebase efforts and the methodology that was adopted by the NBS and compared to what we have today, you know that it's comparing apples with oranges, totally comparing apples with oranges. And I just think we should point that out. One of the things that
Go ahead.
One of the things that the NBS did at that point was to look at the rebase years to be 2010. Even though the rebasing was done in 2014, and just because of the change in economic activity and economic arrangement in the country, so there were more booming industries like the information sector, the information and communication sector, the service sector, the trade, real estate was booming, and so people's activities and the way people interact with the economy changed drastically, and that had to be considered in the GDP, calculation of the country. Now, when this government when the NBS wanted to do their own rebasing, rather than going back 2-3 years to look at price movement, which would have even made sense, right, to determine how people, interact with prices in the market, they went back to 2024. And what they said that the price has dropped from 2024 to 2025, month on month to in a year by 10%, which is not true. There's no fundamentals to that. So when you talk about these things, you have to put things in proper context. You can't just brushstroke things and say, NOI did it or NBS doing NOIP or did it, even though the proximity here was 4 years difference. Yours was just 1 year different, and the indicators that you put in. Now let's look at the indicators, right? You said the objective for rebasing is to check people's behavior, as related to prices, right? As things change, have there been other, sector introduced, what are people buying and selling and whatnot? You brought in imported food indices, you brought in goods indices, you brought in farm produce indices. How are all of these things different from food? So you have to just look at it, from a very objective viewpoint, and say these people are just cross-dressing. And for the fact that we are trying to look good for the global community, it's not about looking good. If you request a loan, for example, from international creditors, which the federal government is moving, the federal government is, are trying to get a $750 million loan from for the rural education project that they are doing in Nigeria. They're trying to do the remaining 1.5 billion loan from World Bank, and on like that. One of the indices that they look is your inflation figures, right? Other economic indices that determine whether you have the credit worthiness to secure the loan or not. So all of these things matter. It doesn't matter to rating agencies that rate you whether you have, whether your book is good or not. So they look at the data that your supposedly independent data agency provide to determine whether you can get this thing or not. When the federal government has been fighting inflation since 2019, I've been having a stubborn inflation that refused to go down. So one of the best ways they felt they could do it was to bring it down artificially to appeal to all of this, all of these authorities. So for me, I think they are just cross-dressing and should not be in any way compared to what happened in 2014.
It's a difficult one to do, really, because I get what they're trying to do, and in a way I kind of support it. I just wish that it's I don't know, because of what they did with the unemployment number. This one's sort of rubbed in the wrong way, because the unemployment number to me was just doesn't make sense. To say if you work for 1 hour in a week you are employed, who would say that? Imagine if you go
they said if you work for 1 hour in the US and other places, the minimum wage is calculated hourly. In Nigeria, our minimum wage is calculated monthly. The very purpose of unemployment figure is to determine the income per capita of the citizen, right?
Yeah.
How many Nigerians earn hourly? If your minimum wage is
doesn't make sense.
How can you have an hourly employment figure to determine who earn what and who earn what?
Even if they do that, Cyrus, can they say if you work for 5 hours or 20 hours, that would even make more sense. If you work for 10 hours a week, but they're saying 1 hour
minimum wage, then you can have a symmetrical indices of calculating unemployment hourly. If you have a monthly minimum wage, it doesn't make any sense to have an hourly calculation of employment, because the hourly does not tell you anything what people earn in terms of what people earn. It doesn't tell you anything.
So Cyrus, just a quick question for you again, right? So do you think investors that read your articles or read Nigerian articles are going to adopt this 24? Is this going to be a good sell? Will they just say these are the numbers, we're going to run with it, or will they put 24 with an asterisk? What's your take?
In fact, the way, based on the trajectory so far, the only thing that investors have been interested in is equities and debt stocks. Investors have been running away from Nigeria real economy for two major reasons: security, insecurity. Forget what we are saying on these spaces. The things that are being reported on Bloomberg, on Reuters, on Financial Times and whatnot are an aberration to any kind of person that's trying to bring this huge capital added money to this country, right? The primary reason is insecurity. So you see Nigeria has the lowest FDI inflow into the country for the past, I think, 19 years or so. It was $29 million as of third quarter 2024, right? So people actually running away from Nigerian market, right? Because number one, insecurity. They are scared of their life, right? They are scared of the life people they bring into the country. Look at what happened to the Binance guy. And the second reason is corruption. Nigerian government have a very, very bad reputation in terms of, business, doing business with them. And I think those two things have been like the major issue, because the news that are going out there. So all this one they are doing, you talk about Coca-Cola, you talk about all these other people are talking about. Nobody is bringing their money to this country because they see insecurity and they see corruption. Until those two things are dealt with, I don't think anybody's going to take risk, and the risk is going to be in the Nigerian market. I'm talking about the real sector, not trying to get quicker money and through the foreign portfolio investment. I'm talking about actually building plant industries, bringing in your people to work with you and all. Nobody is going to touch Nigeria with a long pole right now.
That's not very happy or not. That's not a very, very nice thing to hear you say. Yeah,
because it's being honest, and that's why when somebody asks me if I have 500 million naira, if I have 500 million naira, whether I would, I said that I spoke about investing almost everything in money market or the capital market, and the reason was simple. We all know that business is one of the best way to spread prosperity in terms of employment, equity, revenue for government. But the reality is that, I was doing a survey in Nigerian stocks. We have about 130 companies listed in the Nigerian stock market, and more than 60% operate in Lagos. Yeah, you can argue that they are all over the part of the country, but most of their in revenue and income come from Lagos. But when you look at America, for example, America has 50 states. Yes, you can argue that also California, Texas, and New York is responsible for a third of economic activity, but it's not as concentrated as what we see in Nigeria. So I feel like the federal government and states, they really need to take economic forum seriously, not just creating conferences, implementing those conferences, what they really achieve. We really need to have a state known for agriculture. We need to have a state known for service sector. We need to have a state known for, silicon or whatever, AI or things like that. We really need to diversify because, Carlo, the truth about the problem I have with many states in Nigeria is that they just copy, and sometimes they fail the objective of going to business school, because some of these governors are business school trained, and I begin to wonder, why is it that a state that has at least 20 local government and has a significant amount of people that understand economics cannot generate $100,000 per quarter, making an excuse that everything is headquartered in Lagos. I've listened to many. One of the problems I have in states' economy and policies is that we keep making cheap excuses. Investments in agriculture, horrible. Investments in education, horrible. And if you look at the type of cars they get, the type of luxury they take in Europe, in America, with all the excuses, they still take private jets. So the question goes down to, is the interest in the country, in the interest of Nigeria at their heart, or just for their family and clans? I think we really need leaders that look at national interest. The Chinese, despite the fact that Chinese are corrupt, it's not that they are saints, but an average Chinese is patriotic. An average Chinese wants the betterment of his country. An average Chinese will definitely have something for China. That is how the system has been programmed. So, in fact, you see someone that is corrupt in China, you see that he has at least little interest in China. In Nigeria, it's almost different. Any rich boy you see in Nigeria is telling you that, you see, if you come in, like you talk about stock market, you already breed enemies. And every Nigerian will tell you that Nigerian stock market is useless. While you don't want to disagree, he tells you that once he has a lot of money, he's investing in US. Once he has a lot of money, he's investing in China. And in reality, what you find out is that his level of understanding of investing is limited, because even at those markets, you need certain advantages, political, economic, social culture, to really break to the legs. And so we really need to change that economic perception that, America is important, France is important, UK is important, but the best way we can build our wealth is our country. We need leaders that are not snapping on TikTok because of the wear Louis Vuitton, because they are driving a CLS or driving a Rolls Royce. We need leaders that understand that they are sending policies that when they are buried, their names will still be remembered. Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, Michael Faraday, nobody remembers their net worth. We all remember their inventions, their laws. These are things we need, Kalu.
Okay, let me answer us. I'm reading a story here. Ogun State is looking at getting about $2.5 billion, that's dollars, $2.5 billion through the JBS of Brazil. So JBS wants to invest 2.5 in Ogun State. That they're doing cattle ranching. So they're going to have cattle ranches and all that in Ogun. They're looking at Abeokuta also. 16,000 square kilometers and all that. Yeah,
Carlo, I'm not impressed. To be honest with you, Carlo,
I'm not impressed.
Ogun State is my state of origin, and I'll tell you that one of the problems I've noticed, if you look at New York and New Jersey, if you look at Paris and Lyon, if you look at London and Edinburgh, you see, Lagos, for example, if Ogun had really done their road network, we will not be in this mess, Carlo. In fact, property evaluations would have gone. You see, there are a lot of opportunities that could have been created if we understand comparative advantage and simple things in the economy. We don't really need to rocket science or this thing. For example, yes, you can't dispute the fact that Ogun is the gateway, like they say, but we are not where we should be. In terms of development,
Gotcha.
Look at developments. Look at that industrial estate Agbara. When it was built at that time, the argument was that Ogun State would definitely at some point be producing at least total economic activity outside Lagos, outside in the southwest. Look at it. Look at Oyo too. Oyo was a dominant manufacturing house. Biscuits, many of the biscuits that the country consumed was from Ibadan. Now, if you look at things now, it's not like before. Look at the east. The average Abama, things are not as industrialized as by the scale we should have been by now. An average South African should be wearing the Abama shoe. We have not gotten to that level. So, you can argue about this.
I hear you. Cyrus, what's your take? This is impressive. Is it still here? I don't think it's here again. So it's 2.5 billion going to Ogun for cattle. That's pretty good. Let's see what will happen. If that flows into Nigeria and it creates jobs and there's less cattle walking from the north to the south, that's a very, very strategic investment. Financial engineer, I added you once. You weren't ready to speak. Are you here now? Financial engineer?
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. Nice everything with you.
I'm doing very well, sir.
I love what people are doing on this platform. More grace. So yes, I think we have two major problems in Nigeria: the problem of insecurity and the problem of we lack accountability. And when the country lack accountability, it leads to corruption. When you listen to Trump in recent times, Trump we always say we have a country to save. Their only passion and that desire is just that, okay, they have America to save. Now, let me give you an instance. Sometimes, it should be last year, the federal government put it out there that they awarded the road contract, that is Kaduna to Abuja road contract to Julius Berger. And they said, I can stand the chance to be corrected. Federal government said they will be awarding 20 billion naira monthly to Julius Berger
for the
construction of that road.
Which road is that?
No, Abuja Kaduna. It's on the internet, please. 20 billion naira monthly. I stand to be corrected. See, I monitored that thing, but the issue is that do we have independent bodies that are checkmating these people? That is my question. I would like probably people should just speak as regards that. So another thing is that, in Nigeria, we always say that a governor is doing well when they invest in infrastructure. Now I'm from Kwara State. I was in my state last month. I was in my state December. I spent nothing less than 55 days there. And I could see that in Kwara they are just building bridges. And as Emilio Conte, the other man that spoke, said, we don't need all of this in some states. What they should invest right now should be agriculture. There are a lot of lands in Kwara. Like I was traveling through Kwara. I'm from Oro. There are a lot of lands, like bushes are there, whereby government can invest in agriculture. But an average man in the state, you see them building filling station, building bridges. What the people do not even the bridge they built in Kwara, the Tanker Bridge right now, they are not using it right now. They said they said the bridge is substandard. So all of this baffles me. And one thing I want to speak on again is that I read the news. Bismarck Irani said, and the federal government defended the naira with $8 billion, approximately 12.8 trillion, just to defend the naira. But I believe the naira was floated, so why should we defend it again with that large portion of money?
That's the question. I mean, for me, let me just be very, very clear. I defend the float of the naira because we couldn't afford 500 naira to the dollar. We couldn't afford that peg. But now, when the dollar has gone to 1,500, and then we're trying to defend it to bring it down, allow the thing to float. What will happen is that folks that things we can't afford, we will drop it. Because what's going on is that when you defend the naira, you are subsidizing lifestyle. People want to say,
I think the naira is floated.
It's floated, yeah, but only if we defend it, people want to send their kids abroad, right? Let them pay the 1,500. But right now, when you defend it, then people can afford to send their kids abroad. But when you cannot send your kid abroad, by force, we will face federal government college and say, let's make that school good.
I'm trying to read the report, and there are some gray areas, to be honest, because I think when he was talking about defending, I think people, I'm trying to assume that the fact that he was talking about the cost.
He was very clear. He was very clear. He spoke about the reserves. He spook about the good and the bad. Then he said 8 billion. I put video up.
You know why I said it's not clear, Kalu? You know why I said it's not clear? How 8 billion for what? Direct intervention. Nigeria did not spend direct intervention under Cardoso. These things are clear. You don't even need to waste time on data. Just go and say clear direct intervention. If you say okay, through debt, through different operations.
Look at it this way, right? If CBN borrows $4 billion but does not spend it on direct intervention, is that defending the naira? If there's $4 billion sitting in the CBN's foreign reserves,
it can be psychological.
Exactly. So they don't need to give that money to BDC. What is naira's strength? If I am a trader and I look at the Japanese yen, the Chinese yen, they have $3 trillion. You can't go and harass yen. You will lose money. So if I come to Nigeria and I say they have 32 billion, I can raise 32 billion in one afternoon and short the naira and make a killing. So, but when you have 45 billion, nobody's going to short you. So I don't think but when you borrow that 4 billion, how do you borrow the 4 billion? You are paying interest. So I think he's saying that the total expenditure, should we say the army that is fighting to keep the naira at 1,400 is 8 billion. Doesn't mean they're giving 8 billion to BDCs, but we are covering a total outstanding exposure of 8 billion to keep the naira at about 1,400. That's, I guess, what he's trying to say.
Yeah, I think it's arguable, but I think for me, the problem we were coming from, I think it wasn't a bad, but I don't think it's up to 8 billion.
Okay, but the question is, why are we doing it? I mean, if you floated, why are you going back to? I know this is a managed float, right?
This is the argument of Cardoso, and that's why I said that we need to know where we're coming from, Kalu. Last year, the naira was very parabolic. In fact, at some point, the naira was more volatile than Bitcoin, and we didn't have FX from our major source, and it was a new administration. So I felt like under the new CBN, the first thing he was to get from the investment community. And how do you get from the investment community? You make your currency attractive. So he placed a premium, and FPIs got the key and they started coming in. That brought in some form of stability at some point. And that was when people were saying, high interest rate does not solve inflation. I was telling them that you also forgot that we had the problem of a very volatile foreign exchange market. Because you see, if you cannot fight inflation and you cannot ensure financial integrity when your FX market is dancing like a meme coin. So the fact that he has solved that, we need to give him credit for that, because that was a very difficult job. Two CBN, the former acting governor, tried different style. He didn't solve it. So we need to give him credit for that. However,
we all know that it comes at a premium, which everybody is saying. So as it's going down, the yields are going down, and they are finding that's why it's coming out with different reforms. You look at FX code, you look at trading through the Bloomberg terminal, you look at it's bringing out the CBN research team are working with all cylinders. My fear is just that these guys are doing so much, but the fiscal side is just sitting down on the couch. We're not seeing their working, supporting, because if the fiscal side is even doing as half as what the CBN is doing, by now, the Naira stability confidence, we can say that this year, because to be honest with you, the Naira has all it takes to maintain stability from the present macros. FX demand has not increased like we saw in previous quarters. Oil production has gone higher than 1.4 million barrels. The argument is that the country can push it to 1.6 million barrels, close to the federal government budget. Oil is still a bit is higher than $60 per barrel. So we still have some things working for us. The only problem is that are these things sustainable? We all know it's not sustainable. So how soon can the federal government get their acts together? That's the argument. But I don't think Cardoso, the CBN, they did a fantastic. I think they did a fantastic job, really ensuring stability in the FX market.
All right, perfect. Let me get you guys. I want to speak, and I think it's dropped off. Salinkos.
Thank you, sir.
How you doing?
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Yeah. My name is Collins, actually, and that name you see there is Sir Collins, but from the back. Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I don't know if am I audible? Are you people listening to me very well?
Yes.
Good. I'm listening from Yola, Adamawa State, Northeast, and you guys has really talked about quite a number of things. These are some of the things that are giving us kind of a sleepless night. Now, Nigeria is blessed actually with everything. We have the human resources, we have the atmospheric resources, we have the natural resources. So everything you think of, this country have. The only thing we're going to talk about is we'll look at the actions of our leaders. I don't really think in the way we in this very particular group are thinking. Are they seeing what we are seeing? And when we look at who are the people governing us today, look at that. These are people from the ancient. They are thinking like backwards. But we that we look into the future, we've seen a lot of things that they don't see. And unfortunately, they are the ones that are always on the helm of all affairs. So they control things. When you talk about Dangote Tomatoes farm, my father is the first manager of that very particular farm in Kano State. So he works there for 3 years and he stopped. He has been an agronomist for the past 45 years, close to 50 years. So when we talk about the future of Nigeria, I will tell you that the future of Nigeria is agriculture, renewable energy, and information technology. If our leaders can explore these 3 angles, Nigeria can fit the whole of Africa. Now, you make mention of you've never seen any state government producing or a kind of establishing industries that can be able to bring money into the country. Yes, it's good. You are right. Now, you make mention of, Osun State, Ogun State, Taraba State, Benue State. I did some studies some years back. That state, when you're talking about the importation of Gari, when we look at these very particular states, have we ever think of having an ethanol refinery in this country? 95% of the edible ethanol that we are using in this country is imported from Brazil, from US, and from other countries till today. Starch, I stand to be corrected, since 1945, starch has been imported in Nigeria. But yet, Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken, is the 3rd largest producer of cassava in the whole world and the 4th in Africa. but none of them has ever think of establishing within this zone any of this. The government can establish the enable environment and come with the private sector. Let this very particular institution become like the SPV, the special purpose vehicle, okay, that can be used as a conduit to establish this. Because anything you left wholly on the hands of government is going to be spoiled.
I got you.
But the government has at least like 40% or 30%. If Ogun State, Osun State, Benue State, Taraba State.
Yeah, I'm doing wrong to get to land the ship, yeah?
All right. Okay. So, and I have actually a lot to talk about. You understand? I have actually virtually in all those things you talk about. And I've virtually, like, even when you talk about the Ministry of Livestock, you see, not up to 3 or 4 days, I established a particular proposal on livestock. A cow is a factory. What I'm going to tell you now, somebody, I can give it for free. Anybody can use it. A cow is a factory. I designed a proposal whereby you can have a zero waste. We get a machine that can slaughter the cow. The blood can be collected. That very particular blood in that very particular ultra-modern abattoir in any of the state. In Adamawa State, we have the largest, cattle market because of our proximity between us and Cameroon. You talk about Mubi, you talk about Kenya local government. Now, when we have any other state can have that under the lifestyle. Now, you see, when you pick a cow, the blood can be used for feed, and companies, pharmaceutical companies, need it to make beauty creams and the rest of them. The hooves of the cow can be used to make adhesive gum. The skin, somebody was talking about shoe factories. The skin can be used to make this. We have the meat is there. When you look at also the waste in the cow, we can convert it to organic manure. We can also use it to biogas. Now, the earth itself, it's sick because of the activities of mankind.
We're going to land the ship, yeah?
Yeah. All right, it's okay.
You're good?
So, in essence, I will round it up. In essence, if we have opportunities to talk to our leaders, we will tell them now, 3 things only remain on earth for Nigeria: renewable energy, agriculture, and information and communication technology. If we can harness this, believe me, we can achieve everything. Lastly, for 2 minutes, a study has been done by IRENA. In the northern Nigeria, the sun that we have can generate 88.7 gigawatts. I brought in Chinese investors not less than 3 weeks from Hong Kong. China is shifting away from the using of solar panel. They are using dish. They asked me, get any other institutions. We are going to put all these things for them for free to see how effective it is. Now, once you can be able to address the cost of power, inflation, and the cost of production is going to reduce at least by 50%. Thank you. I hope to get another time to talk to you. There's a lot that we need to talk. Thank you, sir.
Anytime, sir. Those are fantastic comments. Just want to rotate the room. I appreciate what you said from Yola.
Yes, I'm talking to you directly now from Yola.
How is Yola?
By Wednesday.
You guys are.
Yeah, by Wednesday. By Wednesday tomorrow, I'll be going to Abuja. I'm going to make a presentation concerning the ecological factors in Nigeria at the office of the SGL. Addressing these things you are talking about. So that was why it was so interesting for me to sit down and listen to it. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that, sir. Thanks for hopping in. We do. I really appreciate you making that time to speak to us.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah. All right. Let me look at your back. What's in mind? Did you have someone? This gentleman was talking about your submission. Did you want to say anything else on that?
No. I think the last speaker just killed it. Mm-hmm. Again, there are many things the state can invest in. Just like he said, I know in that part of Nigeria also they have a lot of cuttings there in Adamawa, but they're doing nothing about it. So just to wrap up like that, let's make our state viable. That way we can drop all these costs of inflation and food. Thank you.
Perfect. Kilo.
Yes. So I I want to say certain things which I think Nigerians need to hear. And we don't like to hear this because we think our country is somehow the land of milk and honey. The truth is that Nigeria is not blessed with everything. We're not even remotely close to being blessed with everything. Do we have good land? Yes, we do. Very fertile land. But if you look at natural resources, outside oil and gas, especially gas, limestone, coal, all the other minerals that you hear of that Nigeria has, they are in small quantities, very small quantities. So let us stop thinking we have everything. If we look at human resources, we have a population, 230 million now. But what is the percentage of that population that can actively read and write and understand complex concepts and put them out or actually explain those complex concepts? It is a very minuscule number. It's not a huge number. It's probably between 40 to maybe 55%. 55 is pushing it really. So let us stop thinking that we have these, we don't have everything. That is one of the reasons why certain kinds of manufacturing cannot happen in Nigeria.
Okay, let me ask you a question, sir.
Our situation.
Can I ask you a question? Okay. Do you think we have the potential to have everything? I agree we don't have it, but do you think
we don't? No, we don't. The thing is, for us to reach that level where we have the so-called potential to have everything, we need to invest. See, I keep on saying this. China invested 40% of it. It's still investing 40% of its economy after almost 50 years of its reforms. See, the problem is that in Nigeria we want to think, and which is what this current government is doing. They want to think, let's just do price liberalization, but not doing the heavy work of development, which involves high levels of investment, both in physical infrastructure and, more importantly, human infrastructure. China has oil, but if you do a per capita distribution of its oil reserves, it's not so much. China produces more oil than us per day. Now, China doesn't have very much arable land compared to us. But guess what? Because of the problems they faced in the 1950s, 1960s, they invested a lot in agriculture. But that is not even where they invested the most. They invested a lot in the manufacturing sector. You and I can remember in 2018, 2019, how many of us here were talking about Chinese cars? Today, in Lagos, you see Changan cars. China is the largest exporter of cars in the world now. They export more cars than Japan, almighty Japan. It is based on the investments that they've done. Why is it that the property sector is collapsing and now the tech sector is booming? Okay. It's because around that COVID period, they switched the economic model from investing in fixed capital investment, which is essentially real estate, into high-tech sectors. Over 4-5 years, when you're investing 40%, they are still doing it till today, 40% of their GDP every single year is going into investments. You are going to make strides. Nigeria is not even doing, I'm not even sure we're even doing up to 60% of what they are doing.
Okay, so, you see why I'm asking that question? Why I ask that question is that yes. if even with all the issues Nigeria has, right? Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava in the whole world, largest producer of millet in the whole world, largest producer of yams in the whole world. So I'm just saying, when I say the potential, I mean, if already with no power, with all this insecurity, there are almost 5 or 3 products I see here that Nigeria is the largest producer of in the entire world. So there's potential somewhere, right?
So the thing is, a lot of those foodstuff that you're talking about, or those agricultural products that you're talking about, a lot of them is largely either maybe because those things grow so much more in Nigeria because of the weather or the latitude of the earth that we are in and all of that. I would agree, especially with the issue of sesame seeds. Nigeria is one of the biggest producers of sesame seeds. It's not something that we typically were growing here before. So we have done some work in that. I'll give that to Nigeria. But then in the case of yam is something that grows very naturally in Nigeria. Cassava, the same thing too. So yes, we need to invest in the other segment. And I said before about the supply chain issues. So if we invested in that, even if we just do, see, the thing is, I'll use China as an example of how a country can come from penury. China in 1976 was poorer than Sudan.
And Nigeria.
In 1976.
And Nigeria.
Let's not even talk about Nigeria. Let's not talk about Nigeria because Nigeria has always been richer than Sudan. I'm using the worst African examples that have always been poorer than Nigeria now. They were poorer than Sudan was in 1976. But it's a situation of when you are investing 40% first year, second year it compounds, another 40%. Before you know what's going on, you are making greater strides than somebody who is 100 times richer than you, but only investing 10% of their economy, which is, for instance, the issue of the UK, where they are not investing a lot, and of course, the economy now is in the toilet because they've not been investing for decades in high rate. That is part of what is afflicting us as a country. Imagine if, for instance, this is what I keep on saying. One of the things that the Tinubu government can do. Sorry, I also round up. One of the things that the Tinubu government can do to expand the Nigerian economy going forward is not just price liberalizations. They need to actively encourage companies to invest. So giving things like tax rebates, tax deductions, aggressive tax deductions to ensure that the manufacturing sector actually, and the manufacturing and the agricultural sector and the industrial sector is revived. Now, I know Ebeloko is going to say the thing of, there is the subnationals. I think it's a cop-out. It's an excuse. A lot of people who are the government supporters usually use that as an excuse. It is the subnationals. The thing is that the federal government itself has a huge chunk of the blame, probably even the majority of the blame, before you then talk about the subnationals, who also are even way worse managed than the federal government. But we should stop saying it as if there are a lot of things that are just from the subnationals. It is also the federal government. This current administration has not done anything to improve the supply side of the economy. They've not. They just done price liberalization, which is like the easiest part of reforms. It is the investment part. That is where living standards improve. That is when price of food will drop. That is when you'll be seeing tomato puree that is maybe 40, 50 naira, not the current 150, 200 naira in certain places. It is those investments.
I appreciate you, but we're going to rotate the room if you don't mind.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you so much for the conversation. I just want to bring a few guys that haven't spoken. I've got Ken. I've got Tall Nero. Ken, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I promise not to take so much of your time. A lot has been said. A lot of right things have been said. I'm just going to drop this here regarding the discussion, which is mainly agriculture. And for me, I don't think the government is still serious about agriculture yet. They are not serious yet, not yet. There are certain things I would like to see that when I start hearing news and actions being taken in that direction, then I'll know that yes, we are on the right path. Number one is the issue of security. Somebody was saying that security is not a problem anymore in Nigeria. I disagree 100%. Security is still a big issue. Until we start having community policing in Nigeria, then I will know that we are serious towards self-sufficiency. That's number one. Number two is the infrastructure for agriculture. I remember during Jonathan's time in Abuja, where they came up with a brilliant idea under Minister Okonjo-Iweala then to have a district. It was planned to be a district where they were going to sell lands to people who are just interested in either farming or providing or processing farm produce or providing equipment, mechanized equipment for farming. It was a brilliant idea to the point that I almost invested in that project then. The lands were being sold in acres. Government was going to provide the infrastructure for that ecosystem to thrive. But at the end of the day, it turned out that maybe it was just a pet project of someone who just wanted to get money. They had appointed one Nigerian bank and they collected money. Up to today, nothing has happened. That was a brilliant idea, because what that would have done is that government will come, do the investment, provide the enabling environment. Nigerians, investors, even Nigerians in diaspora can come, put their money in there, and then you have a thriving ecosystem where you can have farm produce, and that would have contributed immensely, and that could have been a model that would be replicated all across the country. Who knows where we would be right now? But that has not been done. So number 2 is the infrastructure including rural roads, farms, irrigation. I don't know why Nigeria would you tell me that we can only plant maize once in a year during the rainy season. Why can't we irrigate to have maize grown 4 times in a year? And then critical infrastructure is also barns, cold rooms, storage facilities where we can store this food produce in large quantities, so we don't have to depend on cycle of season. We wait for this season, and then when it is out of season, the price skyrocket, and then you have Nigerians going through this problem of food inflation and all of that. So that is very critical. So until I start seeing the government doing this and putting money, where their mouth is, then I will know that we are serious. But as of today, Kalu and everybody in the room, we are not serious yet with agriculture. Whatever progress we are seeing is as a result of the strive of Nigerians who are trying and doing their best to try to improve the output. But on the side of the government, as of today, they are only interested on not balancing our budgets, and being, I would say, fiscally irresponsible, because that's the pattern we have seen over the years. We are still not serious yet. Thank you very much.
Interesting. I like the idea of the sites and services for agriculture. We need something major like that. I think we had it in the past doing Operation Feed Nigeria, Operation Feed the Nation, where the government will go clear the land, do the feeder roads to rural areas, provide the irrigation, provide the fertilizers, and then the local farmers can then go to that land and farm. It takes the yields up because all these encumbrances have been taken off. That's what we need to go back to doing. Focus on the rural areas. China, the miracle of China is that they started from the rural areas. They didn't build Shanghai skyscrapers. They went back to rural areas. They fixed food. They fixed employment through agriculture. It's only then they didn't let the Europeans come to their coast, build factories, and send the rural guys that were already trained, because they had good schools, good food, good agricultural policies in the villages. Then they went to the towns and worked in those factories, and then they built Shanghai. So we have to start from the rural areas. We can't have an economy where Gari is expensive. Gari that is throwaway in many parts of the country is expensive. How can food be expensive in Nigeria? It makes no sense. Think about it. Why is food expensive? There's food everywhere. If you go to Kebbi, onions everywhere, it's rotten. You go to Kaduna, tomato everywhere, rotten. You go to Kebbi, rice everywhere, rotten. Yeah, but there's no food. If you go to Lagos to do jollof rice, it will cost you nearly minimum wage, because all these things don't have trains or roads to bring them from those farms to your table. And it's infrastructure, it's value chain, it's financing, so it's a lot going on. We gotta get our act together. Tall Nero, thanks Ken. Tall Nero, what's your mind? After Tall Nero, let me go get some sleep. Yeah, we're gonna sort of round it down. Tall Nero, you've got the floor. Tall Nero going once. Tall, go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
How you doing, sir?
I'm okay. I'm not sure how you doing.
Yep.
Mr. Louis, guy, good you. Well, I appreciate the topic this evening. I thank God that I wanted to ask this question earlier, because I joined the space almost immediately opened the door.
Yeah.
I don't want to disrupt the whole discussion, but I want to ask something that is not really what is discussed, if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So I want to understand, because I'm new in stock, I'm new in stock, yeah. And I bought this fidelity stuff when they were, doing the whole PR and all of it last year. And up until now, the only thing I got from that stock was the email that they sent me. And I've been talking to one of my guys that works in the bank. And he's saying that they've not allotted the shares yet and every other thing. So I'm wondering, what's happening? Like, is this how it is? Because, the shares have appreciated a lot. I would love, if I had it now, I would have cashed in on it. But I don't know what is going on. Like, it's been there, nothing is happening.
Yeah, that's the that's the wahala with when you buy shares via public offer. You have to wait for the certification and of the investors. They have to wait for your certificate before you then take that certificate and take it to CSCS. So that's the problem with public offers. Usually, I think it was 3 weeks ago, Lumina was saying that it was delayed, and now SEC is looking at that list also. So I think it's been delayed, and I believe SEC is now sort of approving that list of subscribers. That's what you are caught up on. The best way you can know, like I said, is that you speak to your stockbroker or you go to the stock registrar and confirm when those shares are out, because they will sort of will advise you. I'm not sure if it's electronic you are getting or if it's a paper certificate you're getting. Try to confirm. If it's electronic, better for you, because it's hit your position and you can then trade if you wanted to trade. If it's certificates, you have to get it first, give it back to your broker to digitalize for you. So find out which is it. Is this paper or certificate? And yes, there's been a delay. You have to sort of wait till you get those things posted out to you. Hope that makes sense, sir.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. But any closing thoughts for you on what's happening? Any closing thoughts for you? We've had people go back and forth. What I hear is that people feel that the NBS inflation data is sort of managed. The figure reflects, trying to make trying to put gishiri or pepper on food so that we can eat it. It's not really that. It's not that deep. You've talked about the impact it will have on equities, on Bitcoin, even gold. We've talked around on those asset classes, fixed income, what would happen there. We've also listed a few problems: supply chain, investments, wastes, corruption. We've talked around that. Any closing thoughts on today's topic?
I think the closing thoughts would be that people should reflect on all the things that I've just said, particularly on the space. In the past 12 months, sometimes I go back and listen to them, because these things that I often said can be golden nuggets. Like if you look at the investment circle, you look at some investment opportunities we spoke about, look at Nigerian stocks, they've been firing up all cylinders despite the harsh economic climate. So my closing thought is that financial knowledge space, it's not for those that spend hours just listening. I can assure you that you might not get the return now, but there's always a compound effect with knowledge. And just stick around, just do your work. The country, yes, we can talk about the problems, but the truth of the matter is that we are also finding ways to improve our lives. So hang on, spend time on books. Carl's book on personal finance helps. There are other books too. Stay on financial news. Spend less time on skits making, jokes, especially when you are still struggling. My argument is that if you're not eating well, then don't be in the circles. The circles are meant for people that are eating well, that have fun. Yes, it's good to socialize, but try to spend more time equipping yourself. Because if you look at the stocks, for example, this year, if you look at most of these stocks are at their 52-week high. And the reality is that if investment opportunities still come in, it means that Nigerian stocks will still keep firing. So don't just jump in because people are buying. Try to know how to buy, how to invest, and how these things are just reading. Simple Google search, Twitter search, you can search people's handle. Like for example, Carl has spoken about so many things on stocks. You can just search his name and stocks or keywords. You can search my name on keywords, you get information, listen to space. So I think my closing part is that hang on with financial knowledge. Don't allow the economic conditions in Nigeria weigh you down. We definitely have to have the optimistic spirit while we are criticizing our leaders for the betterment of our country. And I hope someday we all have something to smile about. Until then, I think have a very blissful week.
Perfect. Thanks so much. There's a tweet I will just read out from a guy here. No information provided by developer. He says with the rebates, as with these inflation rebates, fixed income assets may offer lower coupons and capital may seek equity. So he's saying that rates are going to go down, so bonds will offer lower rates and stock market is going to offer better opportunities, especially if the MPR is reduced. He says we, that's Nigeria, are betting on oil prices, respecting our feelings, okay? Also betting on security improving for trade and oil production and for local consumption staying strong enough. I totally agree. That's a very, very good summary. That can happen. Like I said, this inflation thing is like a trigger. If we can build on lower inflation today, I think we're better off for it. Even if we agree with it or don't agree with it, if we can build some momentum around that inflation has been cut down by 10% and hopefully get the SMEs to start to produce, even if it's by subsidies or otherwise, we've got to get consumption at the local level back in Nigeria so that jobs are created and the country and the economies can start to function again. Hopefully the government can then get its tax revenues in Naira and not have to borrow so much. So it's all really down to at the small stakeholder level, getting those shops, those little factories operating again so that they can earn income and they can consume. Without that consumption, there's no economy. We're just importing and exporting. We really have to have that local economy flowing at all levels. So thanks guys, folks, for listening in. I appreciate you all for joining in and I hope to see you guys here next week. We're always here 7:30 p.m. Sundays, talk about money, economy, and of course personal finance. And I hope I'll see you guys here again next week. On that note, guys, have a good one. Enjoy your week. Keep it safe and keep it simple. Thank you and bye.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.